Welcome to Wife Cheating Story. I hope you have an enjoyable and relaxing time listening. Let's get started.
A low buzz of chatter and the scent of spicy chicken wings hung in the air as Lucian Ward crossed the threshold of Marisol and Varen's spacious living room. The place felt like a mini-stadium TV screens blaring a college football game, arms flung in excitement whenever a close play occurred. Outside, a crisp autumn wind occasionally rattled the back door, but inside was all warm laughter and bright lights. Lucian scanned the area in a single, swift sweep. He noticed Briella, his wife, standing by the kitchen archway with a glass of white wine. She wore a chic navy sweater and fitted jeans, yet her usual easy smile looked somewhat forced. He noticed how her shoulders tensed whenever she leaned in to whisper with Nerissa, one of her closest friends. Something felt off. He brushed past a few acquaintances, exchanging polite nods. He was tall enough to see over most heads, so he couldn't miss how Briella's eyes darted toward him when she thought he wasn't looking. The muscle in his jaw twitched. Something about her demeanor signaled trouble, and a quiet alarm went off in his mind. "Yo, Lucian!" Cyril hollered from the sofa, raising a bottled beer in salute. "Come watch this replay, man. This quarterback's on fire." Lucian forced a grin and ambled closer, but his heart wasn't in it. Instead of sinking into the couch, he lingered behind, watching Briella vanish into the hallway that led toward the laundry room and back deck. His instincts urged him to follow. He set his soda on a side table and slipped away. The hallway was dim, illuminated mostly by a decorative lamp shaped like a football helmet. Laughter echoed from the living room, but the corridor felt strangely isolated. As he crept closer to the laundry area, he caught Briella's voice, hushed yet distinct. Even more alarming, she was talking about him. "I'm telling you," Briella murmured. "Lucian tries so hard, but—" She exhaled a laugh laced with frustration. "I need more excitement, you know?" Nerissa's voice chimed in, gentler. "Is that why you mentioned Zarek again?" Lucian's stomach tightened. Zarek. An ex-boyfriend from Briella's past, a man with a loud personality and a flair for risk. A man she'd once described as electrifying. Briella gave a half snort. "It's not like I'm calling him, but sometimes I wonder if I made the safe choice. Lucian's so serious. I mean, yeah, he's a good provider, but that's hardly thrilling." Lucian's pulse slammed in his ears. He should have marched in and confronted her right then, but he found his feet rooted to the floor. Another wave of voices drifted from the living room, but he could only focus on the venom in Briella's tone. Nerissa made a soft clicking sound with her tongue. "You're drunk. Stop talking like this. You know Lucian's a good guy," Briella cut her off. "I'm not blind, Neri. He's good, just a bit dull. Zarek used to well, you know." Her voice dropped lower. "But that's not the point. I'd never cheat. I'm just venting. Still, it's fun to imagine what if—" Lucian felt a surge of cold fury. He inhaled slowly to calm himself, but his veins felt like ice. Instead of confronting them, he backed away, carefully placing each step to avoid squeaking floorboards. The conversation hammered in his mind. Dull. Safe choice. She was mocking him, spinning fantasies about her ex right under his nose. Stepping into the living room again, the noise of cheering guests smacked him in the face, yet he barely registered them. A wave of adrenaline made his senses sharp. He could smell the barbecue sauce, sense the rise and fall of dozens of voices. He locked his gaze on the door, fighting the urge to break something in a public meltdown. Varen, their host, jogged past with an armful of soda packs. "Everything okay, Lucian?" he asked, noticing the tight set of Lucian's jaw. Lucian mustered a neutral nod. "All good. Think I just need some air." He slid out onto the front porch, letting the brisk wind slap him awake. His breath formed tiny clouds in the night air. Across the street, a row of houses glowed with warm porch lights, leaves swirling under street lamps. He gripped the wooden railing, letting the cold seep through his palms. She was dissatisfied. She wanted the thrill of someone else, even if only in her fantasies. And worst of all, she wasn't shy about telling friends. What she didn't realize, he mused, was that underneath his calm exterior, he could be just as fierce as any thrilling ex. He took a moment to quell the anger surging through him, to gather his composure. When he returned inside, the second quarter of the football game was almost over. He locked eyes with Briella, who gave him a wavering smile, probably assuming he hadn't heard a thing. Lucian let none of his fury show. He approached calmly, whispered in her ear, "I'm heading home early. You can stay if you'd like." She blinked, confused. "But—" He didn't wait for her response. He casually said goodbye to a few guests, nodded at Marisol in thanks, and left. Briella seemed torn between following and staying put, but he didn't look back. Sliding into his car, Lucian started the engine. The hum of it vibrated under his hands, reminding him he had control over something. With a steady exhale, he thought through what he'd just witnessed. He didn't want to create a public scene. He didn't want to hurl accusations left and right. No, that wasn't his style. He was far more methodical than that. As he pulled out of the driveway, he glanced back at the bright windows of Marisol and Varen's home. Laughter still poured from that place, along with the rancid truth he'd uncovered. In a single instant, Briella had turned their marriage into a fragile facade. Strapping on his seatbelt, Lucian muttered under his breath, "You want excitement? Let's see how exciting this gets." And with that, he drove away, a quiet storm brewing in the depths of his mind. The drive back to the house felt longer than usual. Even the quiet suburban streets, lined with identical lampposts and well-kept yards, seemed ominous under the moonlight. Lucian gripped the steering wheel tightly, recalling every bitter word from Briella's conversation with Nerissa. His heart thudded, but his mind was already shifting into problem-solving mode. He parked in the driveway and sat there in the silence. From the passenger seat, he gathered a few unopened letters he'd been meaning to glance at bills, mostly. Anything to occupy his hands while he planned. He was angry, no doubt, but he wasn't about to storm around the house yelling. That would only give Briella reason to label him unhinged. A text pinged on his phone. "Briella, hey, where are you?" He stared at the message, lips tightening. She had the nerve to act clueless. Instead of answering, he clicked the phone off. Let her stew. Inside the dimly lit house, the smell of leftover pasta lingered. Lucian dropped his jacket on the coat rack and made his way to the kitchen. He flicked on a single overhead light, creating an island of brightness in the otherwise dark room. Opening the fridge, he grabbed a bottle of water, then paused, gazing at a framed family photo on the counter. It showed him, Briella, and the kids Ellis and Clara smiling during a summer beach trip. It was taken only a few months ago. They'd looked happy, or at least, he had been. Memory after memory rolled through him, moments of laughter, inside jokes, lazy weekend mornings reading books on the couch. Were those days a lie? Or had something changed so drastically that Briella found him safe but dull? He exhaled slowly, setting the photo face down. The real question, when did she start revisiting Zarek in her mind? He despised that name, despised the smug look Zarek had once given him at a mutual friend's wedding, like he was humoring the new guy in Briella's life. The front door finally clicked open, footsteps light on the floor. Briella. Lucian's heart pounded, but his face remained neutral when she appeared in the kitchen doorway. Her cheeks were slightly flushed, likely from the wine or from hurrying home. "You left so suddenly," she began, setting her keys on the table. "I worried something was wrong." He swallowed a bitter laugh. "Something is wrong," he said calmly, not bothering to elaborate. Her eyes flicked to the sideways photo on the counter, but she made no comment. "Lucian," she said softly, approaching him. "Are you upset because I didn't leave with you?" She tried for a gentle grin, but it faltered. "You know how I enjoy these gatherings. I just wanted a little more time." He regarded her for a moment, noticing the faint tremor in her hands. Was it nerves, or just too many glasses of wine? "You don't have to explain," he replied, voice steady. "I get it. Sometimes you need to let off steam." Her eyes searched his face. What's that supposed to mean? He took a long sip of water. A part of him ached to demand an apology or fling accusations, but he forced himself to remain controlled. "Forget it. I'm tired," he said, walking past her. At the staircase, he paused, glancing back. "We'll talk in the morning." Briella stood rooted to the spot, chewing her lip as though sensing an undercurrent of tension. She gave a tentative nod. "Sure," she whispered. Upstairs, he locked himself in the home office, an orderly space with shelves of books and a single large desk. He flicked on a small lamp, casting a soft glow on the laptop. Settling in, he powered it up, mind whirling. If Briella was just venting, he could talk it out. But if there was more behind those words, he opened his email, intending to distract himself with a bit of late-night work. Instead, he found himself searching his own memory for small cracks he might have overlooked. Times she'd been distant, phone calls that ended too quickly when he entered a room, the occasional flinch when he asked if she was happy. Tired, he muttered to himself, echoing his own lame excuse. Sleep was the furthest thing from his mind. Somewhere in the next room, he could hear Briella moving around, shutting off lights, rummaging through drawers. Lucian clenched his fists, forcing himself not to burst in with questions. If there was more, he needed to be sure before acting. He scribbled down a few notes on a yellow legal pad. Check phone records. Check social media. The bullet points stared back at him like a silent dare. Fine. He closed the notepad carefully, as if it were top-secret information. We'll see what's behind your little confessions, Briella. And if it's real, his jaw set. He clicked off the lamp, letting darkness reclaim the room. Morning light seeped around the curtains of Lucian's office, revealing a restless night's worth of scribbled notes. He stirred from the stiff couch he'd crashed on, ignoring the dull ache in his neck. Across the hallway, the kids' bedrooms were silent, the hush of dawn unbroken. Briella was likely still asleep or pretending to be. He tiptoed into the kitchen, firing up the coffee machine. The gentle hiss of dripping coffee offered a momentary comfort. He felt calmer, though far from at ease. His phone vibrated a text from Damon, a friend who had also been at last night's party. Damon, "Hey, man. Briella seemed worried you left early. You okay? Heard some chatter that might have upset you." Lucian stared at the message, debating how much to reveal. Chatter. That was a mild term for a direct hit on his pride. He typed a quick reply. "I'm fine. Just had something to handle." A shuffle of footsteps alerted him that Briella was awake. She appeared in the kitchen wearing a plain gray t-shirt and leggings, her hair in a messy ponytail. She looked at him with cautious eyes. "Morning." He nodded, sipping coffee in silence. She bit her lip. "Lucian, about last night." "Wait." He interrupted softly, raising a hand. "We'll talk soon. The kids will be up any minute, and I don't want them sensing tension." A flash of relief and concern crossed her face. "All right," she agreed, backing down. Within minutes, Ellis and Clara bounded in, demanding cereal. Lucian mustered a smile for them, helping to pour milk. If either child noticed the slightly rigid atmosphere, they said nothing. The typical breakfast chaos spilled cereal. Playful arguments over who got the last apple slice allowed Lucian to momentarily shelve his anger. Once the kids were off to school, Briella hovered by the door. "I can drop them off on my way," she offered. "We can talk when I get back." Lucian gave a curt nod. "Sure." After the door closed behind them, he exhaled. This was his window of opportunity. He headed upstairs, straight to Briella's dressing table, heart pounding. He wasn't proud of snooping, but this was war he needed to confirm or disprove his suspicions. He scanned the top drawer, a few receipts, random jewelry, and a small pink notebook. Flipping through, he found nothing but scribbled shopping lists, no sign of Zarek's name. He quickly reassembled everything exactly as he found it. Next, he checked her phone bill online. He'd done the account setup ages ago, so he still had the login. The record showed some suspiciously long calls to an unknown number labeled simply Z. The last call was 2 weeks prior. His jaw tightened. Z Zarek? He scribbled the details onto his notepad, ignoring the guilt creeping up his spine. If she was innocent, she wouldn't be logging extended calls with a cryptic contact. He was about to shut the laptop when an email popped up from Damon again, this time with a curious subject line, "Just girl talk?" Intrigued, Lucian opened it. Damon wrote that both Cyril and Nerissa wanted Lucian to know it really was just girl talk, that Briella had too many glasses of wine. She might have exaggerated things. They pleaded with him not to take it to heart. Lucian closed his eyes in frustration. If it were truly harmless, she wouldn't have hidden those phone calls. He typed a brief reply. "Appreciate it, Damon. Let's catch up soon. Pocketing his phone, he wandered into the living room. The couch still bore a crumpled throw blanket from last night. His mind drifted back to a time Briella had teased him about being too neat, too controlled. Relax, Lucian. Life doesn't have to be so buttoned up. And now, ironically, it was her secrets forcing him into a new level of scrutiny. By the time Briella returned, Lucian was seated calmly at the dining table, writing in a small notebook. She shrugged off her light jacket, eyes flicking to the living room where he sat. "You said we needed to talk," she ventured, voice subdued. He glanced up. "We do, but not yet. I have an errand to run first." "An errand? Now?" She sounded bewildered. "Trust me," he said simply, standing. "We'll speak soon, I promise." Without further explanation, he walked outside, phone in hand. The sun sat high in a cloudless sky, warming his face as he tapped a number he hadn't used in over a year. Logan Garfield, an old mentor from his corporate days who specialized in discreet investigations. If anyone could clarify whether these calls to Z were just random or truly linked to Zarek, it was him. "Logan?" Lucian said when the line picked up. "I need a favor." The conversation was brief and to the point. Logan agreed to do some checking. Lucian ended the call feeling a hard knot of purpose solidifying in his chest. If Briella had forged some emotional link with Zarek, he would find out. And once I know for sure, he thought, there's no going back. Lucian returned home late that afternoon, stepping into a silent house. The only sound was the steady tick of the grandfather clock in the hallway. A warm lamp glow spilled from the living room, where he found Briella curled on the couch, staring into space. She looked up sharply at his entrance. "Lucian," she said, voice thick with anxiety. "Where have you been all day? I called. You didn't answer." He shrugged off his coat and hung it neatly. "Took care of some personal matters." She motioned to the cushion beside her. "Please, let me clarify. You can talk trash about me all you want, but hearing you bring up your ex like you're pining for something with him doesn't sit right." She ran a trembling hand over her face. "I wasn't pining. I was venting, just big talk that doesn't mean anything. I promise." Her voice caught on the word promise, as though she realized how feeble it sounded. Lucian inhaled slowly, willing his anger to remain controlled. No shouting, no theatrics. "Here's the deal," he said, turning to face her fully. "You might think it's harmless, but it doesn't feel harmless to me. If you're missing something in our marriage, you could have come to me." Her eyes darted away. "I know. I should have. I'm sorry." Silence stretched between them, charged with the weight of unspoken accusations. Finally, Lucian rapped his knuckles lightly on the coffee table, as if tapping out a verdict. "Just so we're clear, if I discover there's more than talk going on if you're meeting him, calling him there will be consequences." His voice dropped, each syllable calm yet loaded with warning. Briella lifted her chin, tears glistening. "And you think so little of me that you're ready to punish me for something I haven't even done?" He studied her face. "I think very little of the lies you might be telling. That's what I'm prepared to respond to." A moment later, the front door burst open and Ellis and Clara barreled in, dropping backpacks by the entryway. Their excited chatter shattered the tension momentarily. Briella quickly wiped her cheeks, and Lucian stood up, forcing a composed smile. "Hey, you two," he greeted, ushering them toward the kitchen. "Go wash up. We'll start dinner soon." Once they left, Briella cleared her throat. "I don't want the kids dragged into our argument. Let's keep this between us." Lucian gave a single nod. "Agreed. But understand something. I'm not naive. If there's anything you need to admit, do it now." Her eyes flashed with frustration. "I have nothing to admit, aside from the fact that I was stupid to compare you to Zarek out loud. It was me being petty, and yes, it was an insult. But physically, emotionally, I'm still here with you." He regarded her silently. He wanted to believe her words. But the phone records, the possibility of old feelings for Zarek, none of that was explained. So he simply said, "Then show me. Prove it." That night, they moved like strangers through the house. Dinner was subdued, the children puzzled by the quiet. After the kids were in bed, Lucian stepped into the bathroom to wash up. When he returned, He found Briella waiting in the hallway, holding something small in her hands. "Here," she murmured. "This is a gift from Zarek back when I was in college. It's just a cheap keychain he gave me." She pressed it into Lucian's palm. "I'd forgotten it was even in my drawer until, well, I found it again recently. I'm throwing it out." Lucian looked down at the tarnished metal trinket, remembering the man who had once flaunted his presence in Briella's life. Seeing that keychain felt like a physical reminder of the wedge between them. "Thank you," he said quietly, pocketing the item. Inside, a spark of anger ignited. She's so casual about it. But how many times has she looked at this thing and thought about him? Briella exhaled shakily. "I'm trying to prove I'm serious. No secrets." He nodded, though a cold part of his mind whispered, "She's only showing you what she wants you to see." Still, he managed a level tone. "I appreciate the gesture." They turned in for the night, each lost in separate thoughts. Neither spoke of love or reassurance. Instead, an uneasy truce settled in the air. Just before slipping into bed, Lucian took the keychain from his pocket and locked it away in his desk drawer. As far as he was concerned, it was evidence. If he found more proof of Briella's betrayal, that battered piece of metal would be a reminder she could no longer deny. He closed the drawer with a soft click, a final note of warning echoing through his mind. One more slip, Briella, and everything changes. A persistent drizzle coated the morning sky, casting a pale gray light through Lucian Ward's kitchen windows. He found himself nursing a cup of coffee, gaze drifting over the small backyard where Ellis and Clara liked to play on sunny days. At his feet, the family's old golden retriever, Rusty, let out a soft whine, sensing the house's tension. Lucian's phone buzzed on the counter. He grabbed it, read the quick text from Logan Garfield, the discreet investigator he'd recently contacted. "Working on your request. We'll keep you posted. Stay sharp, Lucian." He felt a jolt of grim satisfaction. Logan was already digging into whether Briella had any physical rendezvous with Zarek. Lucian hated suspecting his wife, but trust was in tatters. He'd rather know the truth than live in oblivion. Over in the living room, he heard quiet footsteps. Briella was pacing, presumably trying to figure out how to repair their fractured marriage. Since last week's confrontation, they'd been like uneasy roommates, civil for the children's sake, but entirely distant otherwise. Moments later, she appeared in the kitchen doorway, her eyes set determinedly. "I'm hosting a small get-together here on Saturday. Just our close circle Damon, Cyril, maybe Narissa. I want us to look normal again." Her voice trembled slightly, though she tried to mask it with forced cheer. Lucian sipped his coffee, regarding her with a guarded expression. "You think having people over will magically fix what's broken?" A flicker of hurt danced across her face. "No, but it could help if we showed them and each other that we're at least trying. The kids can sense something's off." He set his mug down. She's desperate, he realized. She was clawing at any chance to smooth out the ripples, to regain a shred of normalcy. That might not be enough to restore his trust, but maybe it'd buy him more time for his investigation. "Fine," he said, voice cool. "Invite who you want." Relief flooded her features, and she managed a small, grateful nod. Before she turned away, he added, "Make sure you keep it to close friends. No surprises." She paused, likely thinking of Zarek, then swallowed. "Of course. Just Damon, Cyril, Liana, and the usual group. No one else." That evening, the entire family ate dinner together at the wooden dining table, but the mood was subdued. Ellis toyed with his mashed potatoes, glancing at his parents with curious eyes. Clara babbled about her day at kindergarten, oblivious to the underlying tension. Lucian forced a polite smile whenever the kids addressed him. Still, the stress ate at him. He caught Briella's gaze from time to time, but neither ventured into deeper topics. When dinner ended, he stepped outside onto the front porch, letting the cool, damp air fill his lungs. The swirl of clouds overhead matched his unsettled state of mind. He remembered the phone call from Logan a few hours prior, no hard evidence yet, but there were suspicious breadcrumbs. Zarek had been frequenting a nearby bar, hinting he was around more often than anyone realized. Lucian wanted to grill Briella for more, but he refrained. If he pushed too soon, she might get defensive, shutting down or lying more skillfully. Rusty padded out onto the porch, pushing his wet nose against Lucian's hand. Stroking the dog's ears, Lucian whispered, "We'll get to the bottom of this, boy, one way or another." Inside, Briella cleared the table with uncharacteristic haste, as though restless energy drove her. She popped her head out the front door, voice tentative. "I'm heading upstairs. The kids want me to read them a story." Lucian nodded, a tightness in his chest. "I'll be in my office." Their conversation ended with that simple exchange, both of them acting polite but aloof, like strangers carefully sidestepping each other's emotional landmines. Saturday arrived too quickly. By late afternoon, the weather cleared, and the sun bathed the neighborhood in a crisp, golden glow. A handful of cars lined the curb, indicating their closest friends had arrived. Lucian checked his phone one last time for a text from Logan. "No new leads yet. We'll call if something breaks." He pocketed the device, steeling himself to face their guests. The living room bustled with small talk as Damon and Cyril joked about sports, while Liana helped Briella arrange snacks. A forced cheer pervaded everything. Lucian played the role of the gracious host, exchanging cordial nods and short remarks. Beneath that veneer, his mind churned with questions he dare not ask in public. Midway through the evening, Briella pulled him aside, practically whispering through a clenched smile, "I really appreciate you not shutting me out tonight." He offered a non-committal shrug. "We're both doing what needs to be done." Despite the easy banter among the guests, Lucian felt acutely aware of every glance Briella cast his way, as if she were silently begging him for forgiveness or at least cooperation. Meanwhile, he studied her responses. The slight hitch in her breath if the name Zarek drifted into conversation, though no one dared mention it directly. Is she worried he might show up? Lucian wondered, scanning the driveway from a window. But the evening ended without incident. Friends departed, none the wiser about the underlying storm. The children, lulled by the relative calm, seemed content. As he locked the front door, Lucian allowed himself a rare sigh of relief. In the dark hallway, Briella caught his gaze. The exhaustion in her eyes mirrored his own. "Thank you," she murmured simply. He nodded and flipped off the overhead light, leaving them both in shadow. "Let's see if it lasts," he said under his breath, turning away toward the stairs. Monday dawned with a sky so bright it nearly erased the tension of the weekend's forced pleasantries. Lucian navigated morning traffic, drumming his fingers on the steering wheel. He had an early meeting at work, but his focus remained on Logan Garfield's potential findings. By mid-afternoon, he took a quick coffee break in the company lounge. His phone buzzed. Caller ID showed Logan. Lucian stepped outside for privacy. "Logan," he greeted, voice low. "You have something?" "Zarek Fontaine's definitely around," Logan replied. "He's been spotted in the same part of town more than once. I also dug up an interesting tidbit. Local rumor says he parted ways with a construction firm under shady circumstances. Could be he's short on funds, maybe that's relevant." Lucian's jaw tightened. "Any sign he's met with Briella?" "Not yet," Logan admitted, "but I wouldn't rule it out. Watch your back." When Lucian returned home that evening, the kids were still at a friend's house for a playdate, giving him and Briella a rare hour alone. She was perched on a bar stool by the kitchen island, scrolling her phone with a furrowed brow. "You look worried," Lucian remarked, shrugging off his jacket. "Everything okay?" She hesitated, then turned the phone screen toward him. A social media post from Cyril tagged them, referencing an upcoming charity event that weekend at a local community center. "Zarek might be there," she said quietly. "The community center is where he used to volunteer with sports clinics. I don't want a scene." Lucian studied her face, searching for any flicker of guilt or eagerness. Instead, he found genuine worry. "You had contact with him?" he asked, voice even. She shook her head quickly. "No, but the rumor mill around town is that he's back. I'm afraid of how it'll look if we cross paths. People might talk, or he might—" She swallowed. "He might try to make trouble." A small part of Lucian's frustration thawed. She seemed tense, not excited. "All right. If that event's mandatory for us, I'd prefer we handle it carefully." Briella nodded in relief. Cyril's the one who roped me into helping. It's just a few hours, selling raffle tickets. You don't have to come if you don't want to. Oh, I'll come, Lucian said, his voice laced with quiet resolve. I'd like to see the look on Zarek's face if he decides to show up. On Saturday morning, the community center buzzed with volunteers setting up tables and banners. The gymnasium lights hummed overhead, and the faint smell of fresh popcorn and cleaning supplies hung in the air. Briella manned a raffle booth near the entrance, carefully tallying tickets as people lined up. Lucian lingered a short distance away, chatting occasionally with Damon, who'd been coerced into helping as well. Every so often, Lucian's gaze flicked to Briella. She wore a simple navy shirt, hair pulled back in a neat ponytail. She looked tired but determined, as though she was forcing herself to push through the tension. About an hour into the event, Lucian's phone buzzed in his pocket. Logan again. He stepped aside to take the call. "Zarek's inside," Logan said without preamble. "Spotted him near the concession area." Lucian's pulse kicked up. He scanned the crowd, and sure enough, there was a tall figure near the popcorn machine. Zarek Fontaine. He was broader than Lucian remembered, wearing a worn leather jacket that seemed out of place at a charity event. There was a swagger to his stance, like he owned the place. "Got it. I'll keep my distance for now," Lucian muttered into the phone. A few minutes later, Briella noticed Zarek too. Her posture went rigid, and she dropped a stack of ticket stubs. Lucian stepped behind her booth, placing a hand gently at her elbow. "Stay calm," he whispered. "He can't hurt you if we're together." She exhaled shakily. "I'm fine. I just hadn't expected to see him so soon." Zarek strolled by with a smirk, eyes flicking from Briella to Lucian. He didn't stop to chat, but the way he winked at Briella felt like a blatant challenge. Lucian's jaw clenched, but he forced himself not to react. Later that afternoon, when the event wrapped up, Briella and Lucian headed to their car. The tension in the parking lot was thick as Zarek appeared across the pavement. He paused, leaning casually against a pickup truck as if waiting for them to pass. Before Lucian could say anything, Briella grabbed his arm, urging him to keep walking. Her grip was clammy with nerves. "Ignore him," she pleaded under her breath. Lucian shot one last glare at Zarek, whose grin only broadened. A swirl of anger and protectiveness churned in Lucian's stomach. But he remembered his vow. He needed conclusive proof before taking any bold action. For now, he'd keep watch, let Zarek make the next move. And from the gloating look on the man's face, Lucian suspected that move might come sooner rather than later. By Thursday afternoon, the autumn sun bathed Lucian's office window in golden warmth, but he couldn't enjoy it. His mind was fixed on a plan, a subtle trap. He'd learned from Damon that someone was hosting a weekend networking reception at the local art gallery. Zarek apparently had an invitation, as did Briella, courtesy of an old friend. If Zarek truly wanted to mess with them, he'd show. Lucian decided to let events unfold in a controlled environment. So he encouraged Briella to attend with him, framing it like a chance to see old acquaintances. She seemed wary, but he insisted, "It's important we stay visible. We can't hide every time Zarek might show up." The night of the reception arrived. The art gallery's white-walled interior and polished floors glimmered under soft spotlights. Modern paintings in bold strokes of color lined the walls, while clusters of guests chatted over complimentary champagne. Lucian and Briella entered, arm in arm, projecting an image of a united couple. Beneath that composed exterior, Lucian's tension coiled like a tightly wound spring. They were greeted by Marisol, the same friend who'd hosted the football party weeks ago, who was volunteering at the gallery's front desk. She smiled politely but cast a worried glance at Lucian, perhaps recalling the uneasy vibe from their last encounter. Lucian spotted Damon and Cyril near a sculpture display. He exchanged nods, ignoring the flicker of pity in Damon's eyes. He disliked being pitied. He wanted facts, not sympathy. Soon enough, Zarek strolled in, wearing a crisp black shirt and an air of casual arrogance. He was accompanied by a lanky woman with bright red hair who wore a bored expression. Zarek's gaze immediately landed on Briella. He waved jovially, as if greeting old friends. Briella stiffened. Lucian steered them toward a table offering hors d'oeuvres. He wanted Zarek to approach, to see how far he'd push. Sure enough, after a few minutes, Zarek sidled over with a half-smirk. "Well, fancy seeing you two here," he drawled, picking up a toothpick of cheese. "Quite the crowd, right?" Lucian forced a neutral smile. "Seems that way. Surprised to see you out and about, Fontaine." Zarek gave a loose shrug. "I go where the fun is." His gaze flitted to Briella, who stood rigid, offering only a curt nod. When a few acquaintances drifted up to greet them, Zarek smoothly inserted himself into the conversation, dropping hints about old times with Briella casual remarks that signaled their past connection. Lucian watched Briella's reaction, the flash of guilt, the forced smile, the downward glance. It confirmed something deeper than she'd admitted. An hour later, Lucien excused himself to make a quick call. In reality, he slipped to a quieter corridor where Damon and Cyril were chatting. He needed help. "Look," he began in a hushed tone, "I can't stand by if Zarek tries to corner Briella alone. Keep an eye on them. If you see them sneak off, let me know." Damon hesitated, confusion etched across his face. "You're expecting Briella to?" "I'm not sure," Lucian cut in, voice tight. "But I want to confirm once and for all if there's more going on than she admits. She claims it's innocent. I need proof either way." Cyril, looking torn, eventually nodded. "All right, we'll give you a heads-up." Back in the main gallery, Lucian noticed Zarek chatting with a small group near the bar, while Briella stood with Marisol examining a painting. Watching her from a distance, Lucian recognized the tension in her posture. She was bracing for something. Does she want Zarek to approach her, or is she dreading it? He wondered, his heart pounding with conflicting emotions. Eventually, Zarek did maneuver close to Briella under the guise of admiring the painting. Lucian overheard snippets of their low-voiced conversation. "Still have my number?" Zarek asked. She shook her head. "No, that's in the past." He shrugged. "If that's what you want to tell yourself." Marisol cleared her throat politely, interrupting. Briella used the moment to step away, but her breath hitched as if she'd just narrowly escaped. A short while later, Damon signaled Lucian from across the room, giving a slight nod. Lucian slipped away from the crowd and found a shadowed alcove leading to the gallery's back hallway. Carefully, he peeked out. Sure enough, Zarek stood there, typing something on his phone, then locking eyes with Briella, who hovered uncertainly at the hallway entrance. Their hushed exchange sounded tense. Lucian's blood roared in his ears, but he forced himself to remain hidden, letting the conversation happen. "Stop following me," Briella hissed, voice trembling. "Lucian will," Zarek smirked. "What's he gonna do? He's too stiff to handle a real threat." Briella closed her eyes as though summoning courage. "We're done, Zarek." "You got that?" He snorted. "Sure you are." He slipped a folded note or paper into her hand. "In case you change your mind." Lucian caught a glimpse of her stunned expression. She crumpled the note, shoving it into her purse. Then she turned on her heel and hurried back to the main area. Zarek stood there a moment, looking smug before strolling off. Lucian's heart pounded like a war drum. He had no direct proof of an affair, but he'd seen enough to confirm that old sparks lingered in the tension between them. Fuming, he stayed quiet for now, patience. Gather enough to end this once and for all. Sunday morning arrived with the promise of a sunny day, but Lucian felt none of its warmth. After the art gallery incident, he spent half the night reliving every smug glance Zarek had tossed, every flicker of guilt Briella displayed. That folded note in her purse taunted him. Why didn't she discard it? Or tear it up right away? By midday, he decided he'd had enough. In his home office, he called Logan Garfield, instructing him to move faster, dig deeper. He also took a decisive step, contacting a lawyer friend, April Sandoval, for advice about preliminary separation papers. Enough dancing around, he needed leverage. Afternoon sunlight poured through the sheer curtains as he meticulously arranged documents on his desk. When Briella walked in, she froze at the sight of legal papers in plain view. Confusion swept across her face. "Lucian, what is this?" He inhaled, fighting a surge of emotion. "It's a draft for separation," he stated evenly. "I'm tired of waiting to see if you'll come clean or if Zarek will back off." Her mouth opened in shock. "Separation? You can't be serious." Dead serious, he replied, sliding the papers toward her. I've made no final decisions yet, but I want you to see how far I'm willing to go. She sank into the chair opposite his desk, face ashen. He's just messing with me. I never asked him to appear at these events. I told him to leave me alone. Lucian studied her trembling hands. A flicker of guilt tugged at him. Did she truly want none of this? But then he recalled the hush in her voice at the gallery, the secrets, the tension. Tell me about the note, he demanded softly. She swallowed, reaching into her purse. With shaky fingers, she retrieved a small, creased piece of paper. She held it out, letting him snatch it up. His eyes scanned the scribbled phone number and a brief message from Zarek. If you ever need that spark again. The bitter taste of betrayal filled Lucian's mouth. Why keep it? I was flustered. I didn't want to cause a scene by throwing it on the floor, and afterward, I was just scared you'd see and assume the worst, she said, tears brimming. I'm done with him, Lucian. I don't want a life with Zarek. This is so unfair. His anger flared, but he fought to remain composed. Then sign these documents or tear them up, your choice. But understand that if you lie again, I'll have no hesitation filing them. Briella's breath came in ragged pulls. With trembling resolve, she grabbed the papers and flung them onto the carpet. I'm not signing anything. There's no affair. I want our marriage to work, and I'll prove it. A tense silence filled the room. Finally, Lucian turned away, every muscle taut. We'll see if your actions match your words. The next morning, Lucian drove to work with a swirl of emotions roiling in his gut. He dreaded the fallout from his bold action. Serving her separation papers might push her away for good, but he'd reached a point of no return. At noon, Damon called. Lucian, buddy, is it true? Damon sounded uncharacteristically serious. I heard from Cyril that you gave Briella some sort of legal ultimatum. A surge of annoyance flared. So she told them? It's a preliminary step, Lucian said grimly. I'm not messing around, Damon. Damon sighed. Man, some people say you're overreacting, but I get it. Still, this is big news. A lot of our friends are worried. Let them worry, Lucian thought, a steely edge in his mind. That evening, just after dinner, a knock sounded at their front door. Briella opened it to reveal two uniformed officials. One was a process server. He held an envelope, his expression politely neutral. Mrs. Ward. She blinked. Yes? You've been served, the man said, offering the documents. Fear flickered across her features, and her hand shook as she accepted them. Lucian, standing a few feet behind, steeled himself for her reaction. He'd promised to show how serious he was, but the reality of witnessing it unfold in front of their children made his stomach twist. Quickly, he shepherded Ellis and Clara upstairs, instructing them to watch TV in their rooms. By the time he returned to the foyer, Briella was pale and shaking. You actually filed them, she said, voice thin. Preliminary, Lucian corrected softly. Nothing final, but I need to protect myself and the kids if things get worse. Tears streamed down her cheeks, a mixture of anger and heartbreak. How could you? Couldn't we have handled this in private? Before Lucian could respond, her phone buzzed on the entry table. She picked it up, confusion etching her features. It's Liana, she whispered, then put it on speaker. Liana's voice crackled through. Briella, I just heard the rumor. Are you divorcing? Everyone's talking about it. Fresh tears welled in Briella's eyes as she ended the call without a word. She turned to Lucian, despair in her gaze. You've dragged our problems into the open. Are you happy now? He stared at her, his heart pounding. I'm not doing this to be happy. I'm doing it because I refuse to be a fool any longer. By Tuesday morning, word had spread among their circle. Some criticized Lucian, saying he was overreacting. Others believed Briella had earned the backlash. That afternoon, both received an official summons from a local judge. They were ordered to attend mandatory counseling before any divorce could proceed, citing the impact on Ellis and Clara. When Briella read the summons, her hands shook. Lucian caught the flicker of hope and fear mingled on her face. Meanwhile, he felt a grim sense of opportunity. Counseling, he murmured. A chance to unmask what's really going on. Briella pressed her lips together. or a chance for you to punish me in front of a professional?" He didn't respond, only turned away. In truth, he had no idea if counseling would bring them closer to resolution or push them further apart. But one thing was sure: the public veneer of their marriage was cracking wide open, and for better or worse, they were heading straight into the storm. A crisp autumn wind rattled the glass doors of the Bloom Ridge Family Therapy Center, sending orange leaves tumbling across the sidewalk. Lucian Ward stepped through those doors with a measured calm, Briella trailing a step behind. The polished lobby carried the faint scent of vanilla candles and fresh coffee, an inviting veneer that clashed with the tension thrumming between them. They approached a receptionist's desk, where a dark-haired woman glanced at her schedule. "Lucian and Briella Ward? Dr. Halloran and Dr. Lumina will see you shortly," she said gently, handing them intake forms. Lucian scanned the crisp forms with a dispassionate eye, occasionally glancing at Briella. She stood rigid, fiddling with the edge of her sweater sleeve. Her gaze flicked over a row of motivational posters, trite slogans about communication and trust. When she caught Lucian watching, she looked away, cheeks coloring with shame. They were led to a cozy counseling room where Dr. Halloran, a bespectacled man with graying temples, greeted them with a polite smile. His partner, Dr. Lumina, a poised woman in her 40s, nodded in welcome. Soft chairs formed a half-circle around a low table adorned with tissues and bottled water. After the usual introductions, Dr. Halloran folded his hands. "The court has asked us to determine if there's a viable path to reconciliation, but therapy is most effective when both parties are willing to be honest." Lucian inclined his head in agreement, though inside he felt a steely edge. "I'll play along, but only to gather more ammo." He forced a neutral tone. "I'm here to see if the truth can finally come out." Briella's voice quivered. "Lucian has the wrong idea about me. This separation was rushed." Dr. Lumina offered a gentle smile. "We've read the preliminary reports. Briella, could you clarify what you mean by wrong idea?" She clasped her hands in her lap. "I love my husband. I never had a physical affair. This entire misunderstanding began with me complaining at a party, and I guess Lucian overheard me mention an ex, Zarek. Now it's spiraled out of control." Lucian's jaw tensed. "A lot more than complaining, Dr. Lumina. She's been in contact with Zarek, exchanging texts. My private investigator caught him showing up at events where she was. It's not purely innocent." Briella opened her mouth to retort, but Dr. Halloran raised a hand. "Let's keep this focused. Lucian, you said private investigator? That's quite a step." Lucian shrugged, exuding a careful calm. "I needed clarity. I found partial truths enough to question her loyalty." Silence pulsed in the room. "Doctor." Lumina leaned forward. "Briella, do you acknowledge any ongoing emotional bond with this ex-boyfriend, even if not physical?" Briella's eyes glistened with tears. I used to wonder what if now and then, but I swear, I never intended to leave Lucian. Zarek's just stirring up old feelings I don't want." Lucian let out a short, humorless laugh. "So you say. Yet you're begging me to believe you while you hide half the story." Dr. Lumina's voice lowered. "Lucian, we'll get to the specifics. For now, do you still want this marriage, or have you already decided otherwise?" He hesitated, letting the question hang. "I want the truth. If the truth shows she was physically involved, I'm done. Completely." Dr. Halloran made a note on his pad. "Understood." They spent another 30 minutes probing basic marital history, how Lucian and Briella met, their initial happiness, the children's well-being. Through it all, Lucian offered only the details necessary, withholding the depth of his surveillance. He needed time to confirm any physical betrayal before unleashing the final blow. At the session's end, Dr. Halloran cleared his throat. "We'll schedule weekly meetings for now. Next time, be prepared to discuss specific incidents that triggered this crisis. Transparency will be key." As they left, Briella lingered, expression haunted. She reached out tentatively. "Lucian, we can fix this, can't we?" He gently but firmly withdrew from her grasp. "That depends on how honest you're willing to be, Briella." Outside, the wind had picked up. Briella's hair whipped around her face and she hugged her jacket tight. Lucian cast one last look at the center's sign, a swirl of ivy leaves around the words, "Healing Family Bonds." Time will tell if that's even possible. he thought coldly, heading to his car with resolute steps. The following week brought an unseasonal chill to the neighborhood leafless tree branches scratching at windows at night, as if echoing Lucian's restless thoughts. He woke each morning with a new calculation. Which friend might stand by him who might still support Briella? This marital conflict had fractured their social circle. On a frosty Tuesday evening, Lucian pulled into Damon's driveway. Damon had texted, insisting they talk. The warm glow of porch lights guided Lucian inside, where he found Damon seated at the kitchen table, a coffee mug steaming in front of him. Damon gestured for Lucian to sit. "Man, I hate how messed up things have gotten," he said, voice tight with concern. "Cyril and Liana, they're worried you're going too far, hiring investigators and slapping Briella with separation papers." Lucian's lips pressed into a firm line. "I have my reasons. If she was truly innocent, she'd come clean about everything." Damon sighed. "You sure it's not just the fear of losing her that's making you suspicious? Because Zarek's a jerk, no doubt. But maybe she's not lying about it being emotional only." A hot surge of annoyance coursed through Lucian. "Damon, I'm not blindly paranoid. I have partial evidence of them meeting privately, though I can't confirm how far it went. That's exactly why I'm pressing. I won't be made a fool." Damon rubbed his temple. "You know, some of our friends think Briella's been pushed into a corner. She feels cornered by you, by Zarek's antics, by the gossip. That can make people act out of character." Lucian's mind flickered with a memory. Briella's face tear-streaked after the last counseling session. Could she be telling the truth? He swallowed the doubt. If she's truly cornered, she could show me everything. Every text, every call. She hasn't. Conversation turned to safer topics for a while: football games, Damon's stressful job until Lucian left, exhaustion dragging at his bones. He caught a glimpse of headlights in his rearview mirror, a pickup truck rumbling past. For a split second, he thought it might be Zarek's truck. His pulse quickened, but the truck sped on, disappearing into the night. Later that week, Briella's phone chirped on the kitchen counter. Lucian happened to be there, flipping through mail. He glanced down at the screen, an unsaved number, the text reading, "Need to see you. This can't wait." Briella rushed in, snatching the phone before Lucian could read further. Her flushed cheeks betrayed her anxiety. It's nothing," she muttered. Lucian's stomach knotted. "Is this Zarek or someone else?" "Let me guess," he said, voice low. "You're just going to pretend it's spam?" Her eyes flashed. "It's from Zarek, but it's not what you think. He's threatening to spread rumors or something worse. He's basically blackmailing me to meet up. I'm not going." Lucian inhaled slowly. "He's blackmailing you with what?" She clutched her phone, gaze wavering. "He claims to have pictures, texts from years ago, twisting them to look like I was cheating while I was married to you." A cold anger thrummed through Lucian. Zarek's game. This must be the intimidation angle. "Let me see those messages. I can't protect you if I'm in the dark." She hesitated. "Protect me? You've been half convinced I'm guilty of something. Why would you help me now?" "Because if he's blackmailing you, he's crossing a line. And if I discover real evidence of an affair, so be it. But I won't stand by while he manipulates you. That's my call to make." Reluctantly, Briella handed over the phone. The texts were vague but menacing. References to old photos, claims he could ruin her reputation. Lucian felt a surge of grim determination. "All right, I'll handle this." The next day, he met Logan Garfield, his investigator, at a small diner off Route 17. Wind rattled the diner's glass doors, and the aroma of fried bacon filled the air. Logan, wearing a leather jacket over a neat button-down, greeted Lucian with a curt nod. "Zarek Fontaine's been in and out of shady deals," Logan said once they settled into a corner booth. "Owes money to some local loan sharks. He might be desperate enough to blackmail whoever he can." Lucian tapped his fingers on the table. "What about personal dirt I can use against him?" Logan smirked. "He has minor criminal charges from his early 20s bar fights, property damage. Nothing recent that'd lock him up, but it's enough to threaten him back." Lucian's phone buzzed Briella again, likely wanting an update. He ignored it. "Collect everything you can. Send it to me. I'll confront him directly if needed." Logan's eyes narrowed. That could get messy. You sure you want to escalate? Lucian exhaled. If he's cornered Briella, I'll push back twice as hard. A pause. Just keep it discreet. After parting ways, Lucian stood in the diner's parking lot, the late afternoon sky tinged with pink and orange. He stared at his reflection in the car window. Am I protecting Briella out of loyalty or just controlling the narrative? The question flickered in his mind, but he shoved it aside. Whatever the motive, Zarek's threats wouldn't stand. No one blackmails what's mine, he thought darkly, slipping into the driver's seat. Days later, tension at the Ward household simmered like water about to boil over. Lucian returned home one evening to find Ellis and Clara sitting on the living room couch, gazes downcast. Briella stood near them, arms folded protectively. "Daddy," Ellis said softly, "are you and Mom getting a divorce?" Lucian's heart constricted. He shot a sharp glance at Briella, who looked equally pained. "Why do you ask that, buddy?" Lucian approached, crouching to the kid's eye level. Clara clutched a worn teddy bear. "We heard you yelling last night about Zarek and blackmail." Tears welled in her eyes. "I heard someone at school say their parents got divorced and one parent left." Lucian's chest felt heavy. This wasn't how he wanted his children to learn about adult problems. "We're trying to figure things out," he said gently. "That's why we're going to counseling. We both love you." Briella knelt beside them. "Nothing is decided, sweeties. We're sorry we argued where you could hear." The conversation ended with shaky hugs, but the damage was done. That night, Lucian lay awake in the master bedroom, guilt twisting in his gut. He wanted retribution, but at what cost? The following day, Briella's new lawyer, a sharp-eyed woman named Darla Haywood, filed a motion accusing Lucian of emotional cruelty. Briella insisted she hadn't asked for it, but Darla argued it was her best defense. Lucian read the statement over in his office at home, anger sparking under his skin. Lucian Ward's manipulative tactics, including stalking, hiring investigators, and issuing humiliating separation documents in front of neighbors. The language painted him as an unhinged control freak. He clenched his fist around the paper. So that's the game, he thought. Fight fire with fire. When Briella walked in, shoulders tense, he thrust the document toward her. "Emotional cruelty?" She snatched the paper. "It wasn't my idea to phrase it that way. Darla convinced me, said we need a strong position in case you go after full custody." A bitter laugh escaped him. "Yes, because apparently I'm the villain here." Briella flinched. "Lucian, it's not that simple. I didn't want to attack you, but you're pushing for divorce. I'm trying to protect myself and the kids. What else am I supposed to do?" He stared at her, something raw flickering in his eyes. "You could have told the truth from the start." She hesitated, tears pricking at her lashes. "I never lied about not having a physical affair. But maybe I was too scared to share how much I sometimes fantasized or confided in Zarek. I realize now how deep that can cut. I'm sorry." Before Lucian could respond, her phone rang. He saw the name flash. Dr. Lumina. Briella answered, voice trembling. "Yes, we can come tomorrow. That soon? Okay." After hanging up, she explained, "They want an emergency counseling session, some new insight from Dr. Lumina." She didn't say more. A chill skittered over Lucian's spine. "Emergency session? Something's changed." He gave a curt nod. "Fine. Tomorrow, then." They arrived at the therapy center early next morning. Rain pelted the windows in a rhythmic downpour, matching the somber mood. Inside Dr. Lumina's office, they noticed a third chair set out. At first, Lucian wondered if it was for a friend or another professional, but Dr. Lumina explained, "I've read some logs and statements from your recent legal motions. Briella, you indicated Lucian's controlling behavior. Lucian, you claimed Briella's repeated insults and illusions of an ex can be as damaging as adultery. I want to address something we often see. Emotional wounding can devastate trust as thoroughly as physical betrayal." Briella's gaze flicked to the floor. Her voice trembled when she spoke. "I guess I never realized how hurtful my trash talk was. I mean, I said things behind his back and to his face sometimes, but I didn't think—" She choked on a sob. "I was so angry at feeling unexciting or overshadowed by Lucian's perfectionism." Lucian froze. "You wanted more spark, that's no excuse to humiliate me." Tears streamed down Briella's cheeks. "I see that now." Doctor, Lumina helped me see how it's psychological violence. Words can cut deep, and my lawyer's spinning your actions as manipulative, which might just fan the flames. Dr. Lumina leaned forward. This is the crux of it. Briella, acknowledging your part is essential. Lucian, how you proceed with your strategy, private investigators, legal pressure can also escalate harm. The statement lingered in the room, heavy as the rain outside. Briella sobbed quietly, burying her face in her hands. Lucian's anger warred with a flash of pity. She looked so broken, all her defenses stripped away by the confrontation of her own culpability. Still, the image of Zarek's smirk and the possibility of deeper betrayal hardened Lucian's resolve. Her tears won't fix the past. If anything, this confirmed how blind she'd been to his emotional pain. He remained silent, eyes fixed on a swirl in the office carpet. After the session, they stepped out into the corridor. Briella whispered, voice thick, "Lucian, if I could take it back, I would. My words, my flirting with danger. I hate what we've become." He regarded her with cool detachment. "We can't turn back time. Remember that." Outside, the rain pounded, soaking them as they rushed to their car. Lucian, behind the wheel, gripped it so hard his knuckles went white. She's sorry now, but is it enough? The rumble of thunder overhead seemed to echo his internal chaos. Even the sky was raging. A restless night found Lucian scouring the guest room closet for an old box of family memorabilia photos, receipts, random keepsakes. He was on edge from the counselor's revelations, torn between the condemnation of his own tactics and the fresh guilt Briella carried. If the counselor was right, they'd both inflicted damage. Still, he needed conclusive proof about Zarek to solidify his stance. At the bottom of the closet, he stumbled upon a dusty shoebox labeled Briella Old Journals. He paused. Hadn't she claimed to have thrown these away? Heart-pounding, he opened the lid. Beneath a bundle of old postcards sat a slim spiral notebook with curling edges. His pulse quickened. The first pages were from college. Random class notes, doodles of hearts, mention of Zarek. Lucian's stomach churned. Skimming further, he found entries from early in their marriage, referencing her occasional frustrations. "Lucian is so perfect, it's suffocating." More pages. Then, "Met Z at the cafe just to talk. He misses the wild times. I told him I'm married now, but part of me wonders, am I missing out?" Lucian's breath caught. The date was roughly 8 months into their marriage. She had apparently met Zarek alone. She'd written details about how harmless it was, how she'd felt a tiny spark at seeing him, but told herself it was nothing. There was no mention of intimacy, but the emotional betrayal stung like a fresh wound. So she's lied about that part. Adrenaline surged. He flipped near the back. A final entry read, "Zarek texted me again. Swears I look unhappy. I told him to leave me alone, but I can't help thinking what if. God, I hate myself for this." He slammed the notebook shut, chest heaving. She's been toying with the idea of Zarek since day one. She might not have physically cheated, but she'd harbored fantasies for years and met him behind Lucian's back. This confirmed his worst suspicions of an emotional affair. That night, he barely slept. By morning, he was resolved. I'm done playing nice. He wanted a final confrontation, a truth so undeniable that Briella could no longer hide behind half apologies. After dropping the kids at school, he told Briella they needed to talk now. They stood in the living room, sunlight spilling through the windows, illuminating dust motes that danced like uneasy spirits. Briella twisted her wedding ring anxiously. Lucian thrust the diary at her. "Explain this." Her eyes went wide, color draining from her face. She thumbed through the pages, voice trembling. I thought I threw it out, Lucian. Those entries were old. I never... You met him alone only months after we married," Lucian snapped. "You wrote you felt a spark. You told me you barely spoke to him after the wedding. Another lie." Briella's voice cracked. "It was just coffee and stupid daydreams. I was never going to leave you. I was young, confused." "You were disloyal," he interjected, anger lacing each word. "And you kept dabbling in what-if scenarios with him for years. You expect me to swallow that as innocent?" Tears sprang to her eyes, her face etched with regret. "Lucian, I was a fool. I always loved you more than I ever cared for him. I just craved excitement I thought I missed out on. But physically, I swear, nothing happened. He raked a hand through his hair, emotion roiling in his chest. Enough. You've proven your capacity to lie. Even if you never had sex with him, the betrayal is real. She tried to reach for his hand, but he stepped back. No more illusions, Briella. The crescendo of their argument rose until she finally buckled, sinking to her knees, diary clutched to her chest. Please, she sobbed. I'm begging you. I'll do anything to fix this. Lucian watched her tears with an eerie calm. Maybe once, her broken pleas would have moved him. Now, all he felt was numb. She's torn up inside, but I can't forget how thoroughly she's hurt me. A few hours later, he prepared to leave for an appointment with April Sandoval, his lawyer. Briella hovered in the hallway, disheveled and tear-streaked. Where are you going? His voice was flat. To finalize some paperwork. She clutched the doorframe as though it might steady her. No, Lucian. Think of the kids. Our life. We can't throw everything away for my stupid fantasies. He stilled, jaw flexing. Your fantasies destroyed my respect for you. I'm not sure respect can be rebuilt. He turned and walked out without another word. Each footstep on the driveway felt like pounding nails into the coffin of their marriage. He climbed into his car, the midday sun glaring in his eyes. A part of him reeled from the finality of it all, but his fury and heartbreak were stronger. As he pulled away, he caught a glimpse of Briella in the doorway, arms wrapped around herself, hair tousled by the wind. She looked small, defeated. Yet that image failed to melt the icy resolve in his heart. He'd discovered the diary. He had the missing pieces. This is the end, Lucian told himself, knuckles white on the steering wheel. No more second-guessing. Their marriage, once full of love and promise, had become a battlefield strewn with secrets, regrets, and irrevocable harm. Nothing short of a miracle could save it now, and Lucian had lost faith in miracles. He set his jaw, guiding the car down the street. His mind repeated the same cold mantra, I will end this on my terms. A piercing autumn wind sliced through the late afternoon sky as Lucian Ward stepped into Oakfield Park, scanning the horizon for any sign of Zarek. The wind carried the scent of damp leaves and the distant aroma of funnel cakes from a food truck stationed near the entrance, completely at odds with the tension roiling in Lucian's gut. He hadn't planned on confronting Zarek here, of all places, but a cryptic text from Zarek, "Meet me at Oakfield if you have the guts," pulled him away from the comfort of his desk. Briella had tried to stop him from going, fear clouding her voice, but he refused to let Zarek keep taunting him. He strode past a playground where kids laughed, oblivious to the simmering storm. Up ahead, near an abandoned baseball diamond, stood Zarek Fontaine, leaning against the chain-link fence with a cigarette dangling from his lips. He wore a fitted black leather jacket, exuding a smug confidence that twisted Lucian's stomach. Glad you showed, Zarek drawled, flicking ash onto the ground. I was beginning to think you'd lost your nerve. Lucian's pulse pounded in his ears, but he kept his face impassive. Cut to the chase, Fontaine. What do you want? Zarek shoved off the fence, rolling his shoulders. Word is you're filing the final divorce papers soon. Means Briella's free to do as she pleases, right? Anger sparked in Lucian's chest. Don't you dare speak her name like she's a trophy to claim. You've caused enough damage. Damage? Zarek's lips curved into a sneer. You did that to yourself, man. She's the one who couldn't stop thinking about me. Don't get mad at me for living in your wife's head. The words sliced through Lucian's composure. In one swift motion, he seized Zarek by the collar. The screech of metal fence and a few startled gasps from onlookers made everything feel hyper-real. A small cluster of teenagers, drawn by the commotion, stood yards away, phones poised as if waiting for a viral video moment. Keep talking, Lucian growled. His voice carried a lethal calm. Because when I'm done with you, there won't be anything left to say. Zarek shoved him back, causing Lucian to stumble briefly. That's your problem, Ward. You think you're so perfect. Maybe if you'd shown her some passion, she wouldn't have needed to fantasize about me. Lucian's vision flashed white with rage. In a heartbeat, he launched himself at Zarek. Fists connected with Zarek's chest, then a wild swing came close to Lucian's jaw. They grappled in the dirt, a swirl of adrenaline and pain. Zarek landed a glancing punch to Lucian's ribs. Lucian countered with a sharp jab to Zarek's cheek that sent him staggering. A few bystanders shouted for them to stop. One of the teenagers ran off, likely to find help. But in the moment, Lucian didn't care. He wanted Zarek to understand the weight of all those smug remarks, all that emotional torment. Zarek wiped blood from his lip, breathing hard. He opened his mouth to hurl another insult, but Lucian raised a fist again. Before he could strike, a frantic voice cut through the chaos. "Lucian, stop!" Briella, breathless, sprinted across the grass. She grabbed his arm, her eyes wide with panic. "Please, you'll get arrested. This is insane." Zarek spat on the ground, coughing. "Go ahead. Hit me again in front of your precious wife. Let everyone see what a brute you are." Lucian's heart hammered in his chest, fury still coursing through his veins. He glared at Zarek, his knuckles aching. Then he noticed the circle of phones recording, the uniformed figure of a park security officer hurrying their way. "He's baiting me into a public meltdown." With a ragged exhale, Lucian lowered his fist. "Not here," he muttered, stepping back. Briella tugged on his sleeve, tears in her eyes. "Let's go," she whispered urgently. Zarek's mocking laugh echoed behind them, but Lucian forced himself to walk away, arm around Briella's trembling shoulders. As they neared the parking lot, an older man in a security uniform asked if they needed medical assistance. Lucian shook his head curtly. He just wanted out of there, the metallic taste of anger still flooding his mouth. In the car, Briella rested her forehead against the seat, tears streaking her cheeks. "Why did you do that?" "Lucian, you're going to destroy everything." He stared straight ahead, the adrenaline fading into a dull ache in his ribs. "He pushed me too far. If he wants a fight, he'll get one." She swallowed hard. "We can't keep living like this. The kids, the neighbors, everyone will know." Lucian's gaze flicked to her. "Then do something about it. Tell him to back off formally, and if he ever bothers you again, I'll do worse than bruise his face." Her voice wavered. "I'm sorry. I never wanted it to come to violence." Without responding, he started the engine, pulling out of Oakfield Park. The tension in the car was suffocating, but a small, grim satisfaction pulsed beneath Lucian's anger. He'd finally put Zarek in his place, at least publicly. Word would spread about this confrontation. He could only hope it would scare Zarek into silence. As they drove home, the late-day sun blazed orange across the horizon, a jarring contrast to the turmoil inside them. Nothing is simple anymore, Lucian thought, wincing at the sting in his knuckles. Yet a part of him felt oddly powerful, like he'd reclaimed the dignity Zarek had tried to steal. He just prayed the price of that dignity wouldn't tear his family apart for good. 2 nights later, a hush blanketed the Ward household. Outside, the autumn wind rustled through bare branches, whispering secrets of the coming winter. Inside, Lucian sat at the dining table, an untouched cup of tea growing cold by his elbow. Across from him, Briella stared at her phone, reading updates about the fight. A short video clip had surfaced online capturing the moment Lucian swung at Zarek. The angle was shaky, but it was enough. Briella rubbed her temple. "Everyone's talking, Lucian, how you attacked Zarek in front of a bunch of teens. My friend at work said it's going around on local social media accounts. This is exactly the kind of public scene the judge warned us about." He clenched his jaw. "He provoked me. I won't apologize for defending my pride." Her shoulders slumped. "It's more than just pride at stake. We have Ellis and Clara to consider." She paused, voice unsteady. "Which reminds me the judge wants to meet with them. She's scheduling separate evaluations to see if joint custody or living arrangements need adjusting." Lucian felt a heavy weight in his chest. How did we end up here, our kids under a judge's microscope? "When?" he asked, voice clipped. "Next week," Briella replied softly. "I already got the call from the courthouse clerk." He closed his eyes, frustration mingling with guilt. He'd imagined a scenario where, after all the dust settled, the children would remain in a stable environment, none the wiser about adult grudges. Now reality hit. His public blow-up risked the very custody arrangement he cherished. The next evening, Lucian found Ellis quietly sitting at the foot of the stairs, fiddling with a small plastic toy. Usually full of energy, the boy looked deflated. Lucian lowered himself onto the step beside him. "Hey, buddy." Lucian said, attempting a gentle tone. What's on your mind? Ellis stared at the toy in his hands, some kind of action figure missing an arm. Mom said I have to talk to a judge soon. About us. He glanced up, eyes worried. Am I in trouble? Lucian's heart clenched. No, not at all. The judge just wants to hear how you and your sister feel. Grown-ups sometimes need a kid's perspective to make decisions. Ellis swallowed, picking at a scratch on the toy's plastic chest. But I don't want to choose between you and Mom. You're both my parents. A swell of emotion threatened to choke Lucian's response. He put a hand on Ellis's shoulder. You won't have to choose, I promise. We both love you and Clara more than anything. He forced a shaky smile. Just be honest with the judge about how you're feeling. Ellis nodded, his lower lip trembling. Lucian gave him a side hug, feeling the heartbreak in his son's tense little body. This was the direct fallout of their war with Zarek, pain and confusion inflicted on two innocent kids. Was my anger worth all of this? A small voice asked inside him, but he shoved the doubt away. Meanwhile, Briella retreated to the den with Clara, who was coloring pictures of the family. Through the partially open door, Lucian overheard bits of their conversation. Mommy, can I draw us all at the beach again? Clara asked in her small, hopeful voice. Like last year? We had so much fun. Briella choked out a soft laugh. Yes, sweetheart. Draw us wherever you like. But will we go back? Together? Clara pressed, crayons scratching on paper. There was a long pause. I hope so, Briella whispered, voice hitching. The sound of Clara humming happily to herself reminded Lucian of simpler times before lies, diaries, and unstoppable divorce paths. When did we lose that innocence? He wondered. Days passed, the tension thick as storm clouds. By Friday, Lucian received a phone call from Judge Lorraine Glenn's office. The aide explained they'd schedule private sessions with Ellis and Clara next week. In the background, Lucian heard the faint typing of a court clerk, further underscoring the formal scrutiny they were under. He paced the living room as the aide rattled off details. They'll speak with a child advocate, then meet the judge in a friendly setting. No lawyers present, just a neutral environment. After hanging up, Lucian sank onto the sofa, covering his face with both hands. The violent confrontation with Zarek, the swirling rumors online, now a custody evaluation. If the judge rules we're unfit to share the same house, could she separate me from my kids? The thought stabbed him with dread. He recalled Dr. Lumina's warnings about escalation. This is what happens when you let anger drive every decision. Yet a perverse sense of justification still burned. He'd had to stand up for himself. Zarek had insulted his manhood, threatened his marriage. Did that warrant the cost, though? That night, after the kids fell asleep, he found Briella in the kitchen, hugging a mug of chamomile tea. Tension lingered between them, but neither had the energy to argue. She looked up, her eyes re-rimmed. Our children are terrified, Lucian. We can't let them live in fear of losing one parent. He rubbed the back of his neck. I know. I hate that they're caught in the crossfire, but I can't back down from what's right. Is revenge still right if it destroys them? She asked softly. He said nothing, anger warring with guilt. Outside, the wind rattled the window, echoing an unspoken question. Is this conflict worth the toll on those who matter most? Briella exhaled shakily. We have the final divorce hearing approaching. If we keep pushing each other to the brink, the judge might do something drastic. Lucian's gaze turned to the darkened window, reflecting his own haunted eyes. Then let's make sure we're prepared, he murmured, though uncertainty churned in his chest. A crisp, cloudless sky welcomed the day of the final divorce, hearing its deceptive calm mocking Lucian's internal storm. The Rayburn County Courthouse loomed with its tall, neoclassical columns, a silent monolith to justice. Clad in a charcoal gray suit, Lucian stepped out of his car and took a moment to steady his breathing. He could feel the weight of the day pressing down on him, the future of his marriage, the welfare of Ellis and Clara, the question of whether his revenge was complete or if he still had more to unleash. Darla Haywood, Briella's lawyer, stood on the courthouse steps, tapping on her phone. She shot Lucian a dismissive glance as he walked by. Ready to face the consequences? She asked tartly, but he ignored her. His own attorney, April Sandoval, awaited him inside, reviewing case notes with intense focus. Briella appeared soon after, wearing a simple black dress that contrasted starkly with her pale complexion. Her eyes met Lucian's for a tense moment. They gave each other an almost imperceptible nod in acknowledgement of the gravity of the day. Once in the courtroom, the space buzzed with hushed conversations. A few curious onlookers milled about. Some seemed to be locals following the gossip about Lucian's fight with Zarek. Damon and Cyril sat in the back row, offering solemn support. Briella's parents, looking distraught, exchanged worried glances. Judge Lorraine Glenn took the bench precisely at 9. She was a tall, regal woman with steel-gray hair pulled into a neat bun. Her voice rang clear. "Court is now in session for the matter of Ward v. Ward." She glanced at the parties. "I understand we've reached a critical juncture. Let's begin." April Sandoval laid out Lucian's position first. Evidence of Briella's emotional entanglement with Zarek. Ongoing lies and diaries indicating betrayal. The fight, which April spun as a provoked reaction to Zarek's repeated harassment. Lucian's stable financial capacity to support the children. Darla Haywood countered, emphasized the emotional cruelty claim, citing Lucian's private investigator tactics and public confrontation. Highlighted the online video showing Lucian assaulting Zarek, casting him as dangerously impulsive. Argued Briella had ended contact with Zarek and was remorseful, wanting to salvage the family for the children's sake. The judge listened with a stony expression, occasionally jotting notes. Then she invited Lucian and Briella to speak. Lucian stood, pulse thudding as he delivered a measured statement. "I regret the public altercation, but I acted to protect my dignity. My wife and I have been living under a cloud of deception for too long. I'm ready to finalize a divorce if she can't prove she's severed all ties with Zarek." Briella rose next, voice trembling. "Your Honor, I made terrible mistakes, careless words, secret daydreams, but I've never physically betrayed Lucian. I'm willing to cut Zarek out entirely. I just want a final chance to repair our marriage for the children's sake." Judge Glenn rapped her gavel lightly for order. She eyed each of them with cool scrutiny. "I've received the children's evaluations. Both Ellis and Clara expressed fear of losing one parent. They love you both." A hush fell. Lucian's throat tightened. Briella visibly trembled. Clearing her throat, Judge Glenn continued, "Child custody is paramount. Miss Ward, you want to salvage the marriage. Mr. Ward, you're determined to proceed with divorce unless certain conditions are met. I see potential for reconciliation, but the hostility is deep." She took a moment to shuffle papers. "I will not grant a final decree today. Instead, I propose a settlement that ensures the children's well-being first and foremost. If either party disagrees, we can finalize the divorce with a different custody arrangement." A flicker of hope lit Briella's eyes. Lucian's jaw tightened. She's stalling the inevitable. April Sandoval exchanged a sharp look with him, whispering, "This wasn't the plan. The judge is playing mediator." Darla Haywood looked equally perturbed, but Briella stepped forward. "Your Honor, please, I'm begging for a chance to make this right. I'm prepared to show I've severed contact with Zarek. I'll do anything." Judge Glenn raised an eyebrow at Lucian. "Mr. Ward." He swallowed, remembering the vow he made, no more illusions. Still, the kid's heartbreak and the judge's stern gaze weighed heavily. "I'll consider her request," he said, forcing the words out. "But I want strict conditions." A flicker of relief crossed Briella's face. Judge Glenn nodded. "Miss Ward, are you prepared for stringent restrictions and oversight? Perhaps mandatory ongoing counseling, financial transparency, and documented proof that Zarek is fully out of your life." "Yes," Briella breathed, tears brimming. "Anything." Darla tried to interject, but Briella shook her head resolutely. "I need to do this, Darla." Lucian stood silent, tension rippling through him. She's cornered, offering total compliance. For a split second, a pang of guilt twisted in his chest. He'd cornered her as much as Zarek ever did. But he reminded himself of the diary, the lies. He had every right to demand total honesty. Judge Glenn rapped the gavel lightly again. "All right, we'll move to recess, Miss Ward. You'll sign an affidavit documenting your severance from Zarek. Mr. Ward, you'll agree to attend a final counseling session to see if a stable environment can be reestablished for the children." Should you both fail to adhere to these terms, I'll finalize the divorce with custody terms that best protect Ellis and Clara." With that, court was adjourned. The tension-laden echo of the gavel hung in the air. Briella turned to Lucian, eyes pleading. "Thank you for not slamming the door on me." He said nothing, swallowing his conflicting emotions. Damon and Cyril approached, offering hushed congratulations at the partial outcome. Meanwhile, Lucian's mind spun. I was ready to end this, but the judge just gave her the opening for one last attempt. Leaving the courtroom, the bright sunlight momentarily blinded him. He exhaled, ignoring the murmurs of curious bystanders. I wanted her cornered well. I got my wish, he thought, steeling himself for the next step. Because if Briella truly meant what she said, the final confrontation might turn into an unexpected second chance. Wind rustled the towering pines that framed Lakewood Counseling Center, a private practice set near a tranquil lake just outside town. The setting was almost serene, belying the turmoil that had brought Lucian and Briella here for one last, court-mandated session. Early morning sunlight danced on the water's surface, but Lucian's stomach remained in knots. Inside the center's cozy waiting area, he spotted Briella sitting in a corner chair, flipping through a magazine without really seeing it. She glanced up as he entered, vulnerability etched on her face. "I signed the affidavit," she murmured. "Zarek's done. Forever." Lucian merely nodded, uncertain how to respond. She said that before, he reminded himself. But the affidavit carried legal weight. If she violated it, the divorce would be swift and brutal. A tall woman with kind eyes emerged from a nearby office. "I'm Dr. Avery Westbrook," she introduced herself warmly. "Judge Glenn asked me to conduct this final therapy session. Please come in." Her office had large windows overlooking the placid lake, an incongruous backdrop for the emotional war inside Lucian's heart. Soft chairs faced each other, separated by a low glass table with a box of tissues. "Doctor," Westbrook smiled reassuringly. "I know this is a charged situation. Let's take it slowly." Briella inhaled shakily. I'm prepared to say whatever I need to. I'll give full transparency." Lucian felt a flicker of bitterness. All too little, too late. He studied her face, noting the new lines of stress, the depth of regret in her eyes. Something about it jolted his anger, but also he sensed sincerity. Dr. Westbrook steepled her fingers. "Lucian, do you believe Briella's sincerity about cutting off Zarek? And do you see any possibility of rebuilding trust?" He took a moment, remembering all the late nights reading diaries, the fight at Oakfield Park, the looks of betrayal in his children's eyes. "I believe she's trying," he answered slowly. "But trust isn't an on-off switch. It's earned through consistent honesty." Briella turned toward him, voice quivering. "I know I've hurt you beyond words. I indulged fantasies, lied, and let you think you weren't enough. The truth is, you're the best man I've ever known, but I was too immature to appreciate it." A lump rose in Lucian's throat. He forced his voice to remain steady. "Then why keep pushing me away with Zarek illusions?" She wiped tears with trembling fingers. "Because I was insecure. I thought you were too perfect, and I felt small by comparison. Zarek was, I don't know, a symbol of excitement, of not being tied down, but it was never real. I see that now, Doctor." Westbrook nodded encouragingly. "Lucian, how do you respond to hearing that?" He swallowed, memories flashing. Their wedding day, the honeymoon laughter, the birth of Ellis, the gentle coos of Clara in his arms, then the sharp pivot to bitterness and deceit. I resent how she belittled me to our friends. That night I overheard her. I realized I was a laughingstock in her eyes. That wound runs deep." Briella reached out, but her hand hovered midair, unsure if she could touch him. "I'm so sorry. It was cruel and so untrue to how I feel. I know an apology isn't enough, but it's all I can give until you let me show you I mean it." Silence swelled in the office. Dr. Westbrook let the moment breathe, then softly prompted, "Lucien, do you see yourself letting her show you?" His heart pounded. He pictured Ellis, who'd asked if they could still be a family, Clara, who drew pictures of them at the beach. Then he recalled the savage satisfaction of beating Zarek. A part of him had reveled in that violence, the raw expression of fury. But where does that leave me torn between hatred and love? Finally, he spoke, voice low. I'm not promising a quick fix, but for the kid's sake and maybe for the man I used to be, I'm willing to see if we can heal. Briella sobbed, pressing a hand to her mouth. Relief and sorrow mingled on her face. Doctor. Westbrook offered tissues, nodding. That's a starting point, she said gently. A vow to try doesn't guarantee success, but it keeps the door open. The session continued, with Dr. Westbrook guiding them through tough confessions and raw admissions. They mapped out boundaries, no secrets, shared phone records, ongoing counseling. Lucian insisted on a stipulation that any contact from Zarek be reported immediately. Briella agreed. By the end, they were emotionally spent. Dr. Westbrook rose. I'll provide the judge with my notes, recommending a temporary reconciliation period to stabilize your family environment. After that, you can decide whether to proceed with the divorce or continue working on your marriage. Outside, the midday sun cast shimmering light over the lake. Lucian and Briella walked slowly to their cars. She paused by Lucian's sedan, gazing up at him with swollen eyes. I know we're not magically okay, she murmured. But thank you for giving us a chance. He let out a breath, exhaustion weighing on him. I'm doing it for Ellis and Clara, and maybe for us, if there's really something left to save. She nodded, wiping her cheeks. That's enough for now. In that moment, the hush of the lake, the rustle of pines, and the hope in Briella's eyes meshed into an odd sense of calm. This wasn't forgiveness, nor was it pure vengeance. It felt like standing at the edge of a canyon, one path leading back to heartbreak, the other guiding them across a precarious bridge toward an uncertain future. He gave a curt nod and opened the driver's door. We'll see how it goes, he said. One step at a time. As he drove away, he caught a glimpse of Briella in the rearview mirror, arms folded tight around herself. Part of him ached to protect her. Another part remained guarded, still tasting the bitterness of betrayal. Yet for the first time since this nightmare began, the question wasn't just about ending it all. It was about whether he could find the strength to let something new emerge from the ashes. A hush settled over the Ward household as Lucian dragged 2 suitcases back through the front door. The sight of his old, well-worn duffel in the entryway felt strangely like stepping into someone else's life. The court's temporary reconciliation order had prompted him to move back on trial terms. Briella lingered near the living room arch, arms folded protectively around herself. Her expression was a mixture of relief and apprehension. I cleaned out the hall closet so you could store your things, she offered, voice soft. No pressure to share my bedroom right now. Lucian nodded, setting the duffel down with a quiet thud. Appreciate it, he said, scanning the familiar space. The walls still bore family photos, Ellis and Clara grinning with gap-toothed smiles, a once-happy snapshot of him and Briella at some long-ago holiday party. Feels like a lifetime ago. He ventured into the kitchen to place his keys on the counter. A subtle tension electrified the air. Everything looked neat, as if Briella had spent hours tidying up in preparation for his return. On the fridge, a fresh crayon drawing from Clara displayed 4 figures holding hands under a bright sun. He traced a finger over the childlike shapes, heart twinging. "Daddy!" came an excited shriek from the staircase. 5-year-old Clara barreled into the kitchen, arms flung wide. Lucian scooped her up, a rare warmth unfurling in his chest. "You're back!" she squealed, pressing sticky fingers against his shirt. "Does that mean we're not fighting anymore?" Lucian forced a gentle smile. "I'm here, Pumpkin. We're trying to make things better." He smoothed her hair and set her down gently. Ellis, older and more guarded, hovered behind his sister. "Hi, Dad," he mumbled, eyes flicking between Lucian and Briella. "Is everything okay now?" Briella exhaled shakily. "We're working on it, buddy," she said. "Can you two give us grown-ups a minute to talk?" The kids nodded, scampering upstairs with a flurry of excited whispers. Once they vanished, a thick silence returned. Briella rested a hand lightly on the back of a dining chair as if bracing herself. "They've been so anxious, waiting for you to come home," she murmured. "I'm trying to be patient with them, but they ask 100 questions I can't answer. I'll help how I can." Lucian replied, sliding his gaze away from her. He still felt the sting of betrayal, but seeing the children's joy pricked his conscience. They deserve some semblance of peace. That first evening, they shared dinner at the oval dining table, each of them moving gingerly through conversation. Talk centered on Ellis's upcoming science fair and Clara's newfound obsession with unicorn stickers. Every so often, Briella glanced at Lucian as if searching for a sign that he was truly willing to be there. After the kids fell asleep, he retreated to the small guest room that had once served as a home office. He placed his suitcases in the corner, sat on the edge of the narrow bed, and let out a weary sigh. Footsteps approached, soft, hesitant. Briella knocked on the half-open door. "Do you need anything? Towels? Another pillow?" she asked. Her face was etched with concern, lit only by the hallway lamp. He shook his head. "I'm fine. Got all I need." She lingered, twisting her hands together. "It feels odd, you being here but separate." He caught the faint quiver in her voice. A part of him softened. Another part remained wary. "This is a test run, right? We see if we can live civilly for the kids. If it works, we move forward. If not, we have our answer." Briella nodded, eyes glimmering with unshed tears. "Thank you for giving us a chance, Lucian. Even if it's just a chance, it means a lot." He offered a small nod, not trusting himself to speak. Once she left, he stared at the blank wall. A chance, maybe. But my guard's still up, he told himself, recalling the sting of discovering her diary and the humiliations he'd endured. Still, the children's shining faces that afternoon lingered in his mind, offering a fragile thread of hope. Over the next week, they settled into a tentative rhythm. Mornings found them trading off breakfast duties, Lucian flipping pancakes, Briella packing lunches. The unspoken boundaries were clear. No late-night confessions, no prying into each other's phones, no physical closeness beyond an occasional brush of shoulders in the hallway. On Wednesday, Lucian checked his email and noticed a subject line that gave him pause. Job Inquiry, Fortune Tech, Inc. Inside was a brief note from Ken Delano, an old colleague, floating the idea of a position in another city, more pay, bigger responsibilities. He felt a flicker of excitement, but also caution. Could relocating be an escape route if things collapse here? He didn't mention it to Briella yet. Instead, he tucked the idea away, uncertain whether he wanted to uproot Ellis and Clara. But the seed was planted. "I might have options outside this house if it all goes south." For the children's part, they relaxed a bit more each day, though Ellis occasionally whispered concerns about Zarek, or whether Mommy and Daddy would argue again. Clara peppered them with innocent declarations. "We can go to the zoo as a family again, right?" Briella always responded with a subdued smile, glancing at Lucian for confirmation. On Friday night, as they wrapped up dinner, Ellis piped up, "So, can we watch a movie together now that Dad's home?" His eyes shone with anticipation. Briella glanced at Lucian, who paused before nodding. "Sure, buddy. Let's pick something we can all enjoy," he said. "A family movie night, such a simple tradition from a simpler time. Maybe we can reclaim some normalcy," he thought, a pang of longing surging through him. They piled onto the living room couch, kids sandwiched between them. The cartoon on TV was bright and silly. Clara snuggled under Lucien's arm, giggling at every joke. Meanwhile, Briella sat at the far end, a faint smile hovering on her lips. In that moment, with the lights dimmed and the children's laughter filling the air, Lucian couldn't help feeling a warm ache in his chest. Perhaps fragile peace described it best. Not quite healed, but a small, flickering possibility that something good could emerge from the wreckage. He sighed softly, resting his cheek against Clara's hair. "I'm still on guard, but for them, I'll try." Early morning sunlight streamed through the living room windows, casting hazy stripes across the hardwood floor. Lucian sipped black coffee, reviewing a local news website on his phone when a headline caught his eye. "Local man arrested for fraud, embezzlement allegations." His heart jumped at the name, Zarek Fontaine. Scrolling through the article, he learned that Zarek's old construction gig had unraveled in a swirl of illegal financial dealings. The piece hinted that he'd fled the city for a brief stint, only to be apprehended in a nearby county. A flicker of dark satisfaction coursed through Lucian's veins. So this is the grand, reckless man who overshadowed me in Briella's fantasies? Pathetic. Briella entered the living room, hair damp from a shower, an air of subdued curiosity about her. "Something important?" she asked, catching his narrowed gaze. He handed her the phone. Her eyes widened at the headline. She exhaled shakily. So he really is gone. Or at least, locked up. A swirl of guilt, regret, and relief flickered across her face. "I guess that ends any possibility of him harassing us again," she whispered. "Or contacting me." Lucian nodded, a tightness in his chest. For all the rage he'd harbored against Zarek, seeing him fall through criminal behavior stirred an odd pity. He was never your equal, after all. Lucian mused silently. "Guess so. I hope that chapter's closed." Briella sank onto the couch, dropping the phone on the cushion beside her. She wore a pensive look, as though old memories played in her mind. "Maybe it's selfish, but I feel a weird sadness. Like I wasted so much energy on someone who wasn't worth it." Lucian studied her expression. A part of him felt validated. Another part recognized her shame. "That's on you," he said quietly, not unkindly. "He's proven himself a liar, a criminal. You said it was an illusion of excitement. Maybe now you see it for what it was." She nodded slowly. "And I'm the one who has to live with that regret. Everywhere I go, I feel people's eyes judging me like they know what happened." That sense of judgment weighed on her indeed. Lucian observed how some friends in their neighborhood acted distant whenever Briella appeared at community gatherings. Once, after a supermarket run, she returned to the car, face tight with humiliation. "I ran into Teresa from the next block. She didn't say anything outright, but I could tell she was looking for cracks like, 'Is Lucien still here? Are we a train wreck?'" Lucien empathized in a distant way. He recalled how, months ago, those same neighbors gossiped about his overreaction to Briella's so-called harmless flirting. The tides were always shifting. "Ignore them," he advised. "We can't change people's minds overnight." She offered a weak smile, eyes brimming with tears she refused to spill. "I'm trying." That night, Lucian caught her in the den, rummaging through a shoebox stuffed with old photographs. He recognized some from college days, some from their early married life. She paused on one shot. A smiling duo her younger self pressed against Zarek, wearing an expression Lucian once mistook for genuine joy. With a trembling hand, she tore it in half and dropped it into a small trash bin. He cleared his throat from the doorway, making her jump. "So, cleaning house?" She managed a shaky laugh. "Something like that. If we're building a future, these old ghosts shouldn't clutter my mind. I want them gone." For a fleeting second, Lucian felt a spark of appreciation for her effort. "Good," he said quietly. "It's a start." A few days later, while tending to chores, Lucian discovered a letter stuck in the mailbox, a battered envelope with no return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper scrawled with an apology from Marisol, their old friend who first hosted the fateful football party. She confessed to fueling the rumor mill early on, admitted partial blame for letting girl talk spiral out of control. "I'm sorry for not shutting down the negativity that night," the note read. "I hope you two find peace." Lucian curled his lip in a grim half-smile. At least someone else is owning up to their part. He handed the letter to Briella, who sighed and placed it aside. "I guess we're not the only ones rethinking our behavior," she mused. "I guess not," Lucian agreed. A weary relief flickered through him. Maybe this rebuilding phase wasn't all about them. It also forced their social circle to reevaluate how quickly they fanned the flames of gossip. As the days stretched on, Briella's public shame and Lucien's lingering mistrust merged into a cautious dance of civility. He still woke up each morning half expecting a meltdown, scanning her phone with suspicious eyes if it buzzed unexpectedly, though so far, nothing. Meanwhile, she busied herself forging new routines like volunteering at a local charity and spending more one-on-one time with Clara, who clung to her mother's side. One afternoon, Briella approached Lucian in the backyard where he was trimming an overgrown hedge. She hesitated, biting her lip. "I know you said you forgave me verbally, but do you really believe I'm trying to be better?" He regarded her under the dappled sunlight, the hum of a distant lawnmower filling the silence. Forgiveness was a word he'd tossed out, but in his heart, trust remained fragile. "I see your efforts," he allowed. "That's all I can say right now." She exhaled, relief mingled with sorrow. "I'll keep trying." He nodded, resuming his hedge trimming. Overhead, a plane droned across the sky, its contrail splitting the blue. Like us, Lucian thought, cutting through the air, leaving a trail that fades too slowly. The past ghost of Zarek might be gone, but the scars remained. All they could do was keep moving forward, day by day. A crisp breeze rustled through the pine trees lining Moose Creek Lodge, a rustic retreat center a couple of hours from home. Damon had insisted a short getaway might help Lucian and Briella reconnect, if not romantically, then at least as co-parents. "They have these family cabins, hiking trails, a rope course for the kids," Damon had explained enthusiastically. "It's low-key, but it might give you guys a breath of fresh air." Unsure yet hopeful, Lucian agreed, and now here they were. Him, Briella, Ellis, and Clara piled into a cozy two-room cabin with a stone fireplace. The kids darted around excitedly, pointing at bunk beds. Briella stashed groceries in the mini-fridge, occasionally eyeing Lucian for a cue on how to act. Outside, tall evergreens framed a serene lake. The sky was a brilliant autumn blue, dotted with cotton candy clouds. Lucian joined Ellis at the cabin's small porch, where they could see canoes bobbing at a wooden dock. "We could go rowing later," Lucian said, ruffling Ellis's hair. "If you're up for it." Ellis grinned. "Yes, please. I can row too, right?" Lucian chuckled. "We'll see about that." His gaze drifted to the lodge's main building, where families strolled, holding cups of hot cocoa. A memory surfaced. Last year's summer trip a different time before betrayal overshadowed everything. Maybe we can recapture some normalcy, he thought, a flicker of hope brightening his chest. That afternoon, Damon and his wife, Paige, arrived with their own kids, along with a few other mutual friends. It was a casual gathering, nothing like the large parties that triggered old drama. They set up a barbecue pit near the lodge's picnic area, laughter and sizzling burgers blending under the canopy of pine boughs. At one point, Damon sidled up to Lucian, offering a plastic cup of lemonade. "You look more relaxed," he observed. "Haven't seen that in a while." Lucian shrugged, scanning the clearing where Briella was helping Clara pick wildflowers. "It's peaceful here. Not sure if that translates to real life once we're back home." Damon nodded sagely. "Well, a weekend break can't fix everything, but it can remind you guys that you're still a family." Lucian took a long sip, letting the crisp lemonade calm his nerves. A family maybe we can be, in some shape or form. Dinner went smoothly, with children giggling and grown-ups sharing mild jokes. Briella contributed a fresh salad, earning quiet compliments from Paige. Lucian noticed the relief in Briella's eyes. The group accepted her presence without snide remarks or whispered gossip. After dinner, the kids ran off to play tag among the trees, while Damon lit a small fire pit. The crackle of flames danced in the cooling night air. Several adults chatted about sports, local events, and mild workplace dramas. Now and then, Briella glanced at Lucian, as if checking whether he was comfortable. He gave her a faint nod, indicating he was fine. Later, as the moon rose over the lake, the children tucked into bed, exhausted and happy. Damon and Paige headed back to their own cabin, and the rest dispersed, leaving Lucian and Briella alone by the dying embers of the fire pit. Crickets chirped in the night, and the faint glow of the lodge's porch lights flickered through the trees. Briella fiddled with the hem of her flannel shirt. "Thank you for coming here," she said softly. "It means a lot to the kids and to me." Lucian poked at a charred log with a fire poker. Sparks whirled, rising into the dark sky like fleeting stars. "It's good to see them laugh," he admitted. "Been a while since we had a normal outing." She smiled wistfully, brushing a stray hair behind her ear. "Yeah. Remember last summer at Cedar Lake? We got so sunburned, but Ellis insisted on building the biggest sandcastle in existence." Despite himself, Lucian chuckled, recalling the comedic spectacle of their entire family lathered in aloe vera. He was determined, he agreed, a tinge of warmth spreading in his chest. They lapsed into silence again, the hush of the forest wrapping around them. Eventually, Briella spoke in a hushed tone. I know it might be too soon to say, but I feel closer to you here, like we're not drowning in all the guilt and anger for a moment. Lucian inhaled the crisp night air. Sometimes a change of scenery can do that, but the problems are still real. We can't pretend otherwise. She nodded solemnly. I'm not pretending. I just appreciate this moment of peace. Maybe it's a stepping stone. He studied her face, illuminated by the faint glow of fading embers. She looked both hopeful and weary. He wrestled with conflicting emotions, the yearning to trust her again versus the stubborn memory of her betrayal. Yet something inside him stirred a faint desire to let the walls down, if only an inch. Before either could say more, Clara's sleepy voice drifted from the cabin door. Mom? Dad? I had a bad dream. Can I sleep in your bed? They both rose, the temporary spell broken. Of course, sweetheart, Briella called gently, hurrying inside. Lucian followed, swallowing his unspoken thoughts. Yes, it's just a moment, but maybe moments can add up, he mused, dousing the last sparks of the fire pit. The sky overhead shimmered with endless stars, each a silent testament that even darkness can be dotted with tiny points of light. Sunday morning arrived crisp and clear, the pine-scented air invigorating Lucian more than any caffeine could. The kids clamored for a quick canoe ride before they packed up, so he obliged, guiding Ellis and Clara into a sturdy green canoe near the lodge's weathered dock. Briella hovered at the shoreline, waving encouragement. The water shimmered under the early sun, each stroke of the paddle sending ripples across the calm lake. Ellis attempted to paddle as well, though he mostly splashed water in the process, eliciting squeals from Clara. Lucian felt a rare contentment in those minutes, just him, nature, and his children's laughter. When they returned, Briella helped them tie up the canoe. She glanced at Lucian, cheeks flushed from the morning chill. You look happy, she said softly. He shrugged, a hint of a smile tugging at his lips. It's been a good morning. He caught her gaze, noticing a tender vulnerability there. A fleeting thought sparked. We can still find these pockets of joy together. That afternoon, back home, he settled into the living room, mind racing with the memory of his email from Fortune Tech. Weighing the possibility of a fresh start, he typed a careful reply to Ken Delano. Interested in learning more about the position. Let's set up a time to discuss details. He hovered over send, stomach twisting. Accepting this job could mean relocating. Are we ready for that? Finally, he clicked. I might not have to accept, but exploring options is wise, he reasoned. He didn't plan to keep it secret for long. Sure enough, that evening, while the kids played upstairs, Briella found him in the den, reading follow-up messages from Ken. She noted the Fortune Tech logo on his screen, brow furrowing. Work stuff? Lucian shut the laptop softly. A potential job offer in another city. Higher salary, bigger role. He studied her reaction. I haven't decided anything yet. Her eyes widened, surprise laced with anxiety. Wow, that's a lot. Where would it be? Potentially Atlanta, he said. Ken's not certain about the location, but that's the rumor. She sank into the armchair across from him, fiddling with the hem of her cardigan. You're serious about it? If you took the job, we'd have to move, right? He nodded. Likely, but I'm just gathering info, nothing definite. A flicker of doubt gnawed at him. If we move, are we resetting or just running away? A tense pause followed. Then Briella inhaled shakily. If relocating helps you find a fresh start, I'll support it. For the kids' sake, I'd follow assuming you want us there. Her voice trembled on that last phrase, eyes reflecting a mix of hope and fear. Lucian felt a swirl of conflicting emotions. She's truly offering to uproot her life to stay with me. He wasn't sure if that commitment reassured him or added pressure. I appreciate the offer, he said slowly. I'm not sure I'm ready to decide. Part of me wonders if the kids would handle a big move well. Another part sees it as a clean slate, no local gossip, no old triggers. She nodded. Either way, I want you to know I'm here if you want me. If not, I understand. Her gaze dropped, voice trembling. I caused so much damage. I don't want to hold you back if you need space to rebuild on your own. The confession hung in the air like a delicate glass ornament, fragile but sincere. Lucian wrestled with an ache in his chest. He thought of the morning canoe ride, the kids' laughter, the rare synergy they shared. Then he recalled the countless nights spent stewing in rage, the sense of betrayal that still flickered whenever he let his guard down. He exhaled. Let's not jump to extremes. We'll see how the next few weeks go. We can make a decision together. He reached out, covering her hand briefly, then withdrew. One step at a time, right? Her lips curved into a faint, relieved smile. "Thank you," she whispered. Over the next few days, they slipped back into family routines, each mindful of the other's triggers. Briella grew more confident in her volunteering at a local nonprofit, while Lucian wrapped up tasks at his current workplace, exchanging cryptic phone calls with Ken about the prospective role. The kids beamed to see them under the same roof, even if tension still lurked beneath the surface. Damon dropped by one evening, noticing the changed atmosphere. "So you two have found some middle ground, huh?" He grinned at Lucian after they retreated to the backyard for a quick chat. Lucian shrugged, toying with the fence latch. "We're trying. We're a long way from fully healed, but I guess we're not at each other's throats anymore." Damon cast a cautious look. "And Zarek? Still gone?" "Probably in jail," Lucian said matter-of-factly. "Briella has no contact. That's done." Damon nodded. "Glad to hear it. So, the big question. Are you guys going to stay together for good?" A flicker of uncertainty flashed across Lucian's face. "I don't know. We're exploring a possible relocation for work. She's willing to come, but we haven't committed to it. Feels like everything's up in the air." Damon patted Lucian's shoulder. "Sometimes that's life uncertain. But, it's better than a dead-end path, right?" Lucian mustered a small smile. "Right. We'll see how it plays out." That weekend, at the urging of Ellis and Clara, they tackled a mini DIY project in the backyard, painting a worn wooden bench. The children giggled while slapping bright teal paint over old splinters. Briella and Lucian supervised, exchanging soft chuckles. "Our first joint task in months that doesn't involve arguments," he mused. When they finished, the bench gleamed with fresh color under the setting sun, a symbol, perhaps, of renewal. Clara hopped on it, squeaking with delight, leaving faint paint smudges on her sleeves. Briella snapped a picture on her phone, a rare family moment where everyone looked content. Lucian stood back, arms crossed, a pensive smile ghosting his lips. The bench wasn't perfect, bits of old wood still showed, paint drips dotted the grass. But it was serviceable, bright, and new in its own flawed way. Could that be us? He wondered. Flawed and patched over, yet functional. He glanced at Briella, who offered a tentative grin. In her eyes, he saw the same mixture of hope and anxiety. Then he turned to the children, happily oblivious to all the adult complexities. For now, that was enough. Tomorrow could wait, with its big decisions and bigger uncertainties. A biting winter wind swept across the driveway as Lucian Ward loaded his suitcase into the trunk. The gray morning sky overhead threatened snow. He glanced at his phone. An email from Ken Delano confirmed the final stages of negotiations for a Fortune Tech relocation. If all went well, he'd be commuting back and forth while deciding whether to uproot the family entirely. Briella stepped onto the porch, bundled in a thick coat. Her breath formed ghostly puffs as she said, "Drive safe. Call me if anything changes." Lucian nodded. "Will do." He was headed to a major project meeting in Atlanta, a test run for the new job. Over the past few weeks, he'd remained uncertain if Briella could handle the strain of potential upheaval. Let's see how committed she really is, he thought, recalling the judge's words. You both need unwavering honesty. As he settled behind the wheel, he spotted Marisol's car pull up across the street. Briella's friend rushed out, waving urgently. She shouted something about a family emergency, pointing to Damon hobbling at his front door. Instantly, Briella dashed over to check on them. Lucian drummed his fingers on the steering wheel, torn between leaving for his flight and helping. One last test, indeed. He decided to watch from a distance, curious how Briella would respond to a crisis on her own. Would she panic, or prove she could cope? From the rearview mirror, he saw Briella guiding Damon back inside, then phoning for assistance. Her posture was calm, eyes focused. Within moments, she gestured for Marisol to drive Damon to the clinic while she offered to watch his kids. No frantic tears or meltdown, just swift, supportive action. A subtle note of pride flickered through Lucian. She's handling the unexpected, no whining, no running to me. He started the ignition reassured. I'll call you tonight, he murmured under his breath, pulling out of the driveway. 5 hours later, perched in a glassy conference room in downtown Atlanta, Lucian presented a marketing strategy to Fortune Tech's executive panel. The stakes felt high. He was no longer the angry husband, but a professional on the verge of a massive career leap. Through the gleaming windows, skyscrapers formed a metal-and-glass canyon, a far cry from the suburban familiarity of home. After the meeting, Ken Delano clapped him on the back. You nailed it. The board's impressed. If we finalize the offer, we'd want you here in 2 months, maybe sooner. Lucian mustered a polite smile. It's a big decision. I have a wife and 2 kids. Need to talk things over. Ken shrugged. Of course. We just hope you choose us. With your track record, you'd be unstoppable. Lucian's mind whirled with excitement and doubt. Unstoppable. A word that once fit my pursuit of revenge. Now it loomed as a promise of a new life, if he wanted it. That evening, he FaceTimed Briella from his hotel. She wore a tired smile. Damon's fine. Bad sprain from slipping on ice, she reported. Kids are asleep. I handled dinner, homework, everything. Her quiet pride shone through. He felt a pang of admiration. She's forging on without leaning on me for every bump in the road. Glad it worked out, he said. About the job, it's looking very likely. Her gaze flickered with nerves. I'm ready if you want to move. Or if you'd prefer I stay put, I'll do what's best for us as a family. For a moment, he studied her expression on the small screen, the sincerity in her eyes, the confidence that she could adapt. Let's figure it out together, he replied, heart unexpectedly light. I'll be home tomorrow. She exhaled softly. Stay safe, Lucian, and I'm proud of you. He ended the call, a faint grin tugging at his lips. Proud of me? It had been ages since he felt that from her. Something in his chest loosened a sign that perhaps, at last, they were growing in the same direction. Snowflakes drifted lazily outside the kitchen window, forming a soft blanket over the yard. Lucian set down his luggage and rubbed cold hands together. Ellis and Clara squealed at his return, clinging to his legs. Their excitement warmed him more than the heating vents could. Later that afternoon, while the kids built a snowman in the front yard, Lucian lingered in the living room, gaze landing on the wedding photo perched on the mantel. He remembered that day, the naive bliss in Briella's eyes. What if we'd known how things would unravel? He turned to find Briella observing him. Her voice was quiet. Thinking about the past? Yeah, he admitted. That party at Marisol and Varen's feels like it happened a lifetime ago, but it also still stings. She approached, gently laying a hand on the back of the sofa. I know I can't erase it, she said, voice trembling with emotion. But I've been thinking I might need to address it publicly. An apology or something to the friends who got sucked into our drama. Lucian blinked. Why? A determined spark gleamed in her eyes. Because I humiliated you in that circle. They heard me mock you. I can't change the past, but maybe I can own my wrongdoing in front of them, show that I'm serious about making amends. His heart constricted. A symbolic gesture, maybe even more than that. Part of him wanted to shield himself from further public scrutiny. But another part recognized this might be her final step toward genuine redemption. If that's what you feel is right, I won't stop you, he said quietly. She exhaled, relief mingling with resolve. Thank you. 2 days later, she arranged a small gathering at Nerissa and Damon's house, just the close-knit group from the old days. Lucian sensed the tension upon arrival. A few still wore curious or apprehensive looks. Here we go again, he thought, but at least it's not a football party. After mild chit-chat and refreshments, Briella cleared her throat. She stood in front of the fireplace, hands clasped. I asked to see you all because I need to address something that's haunted me. Months ago, I made cruel remarks about Lucian in this very circle. I implied he was dull and unexciting, that I secretly preferred someone else. That was wrong, untrue, and deeply hurtful. A hush descended. Nerissa glanced at Lucian, sympathy in her gaze. Cyril rubbed his chin thoughtfully. Liana shifted uncomfortably. Briella continued, voice trembling yet determined. I want to publicly apologize. Lucian deserved better, and if any of you believed my words or spread them further, I'm also partly to blame for that gossip. I've grown since then and seen the damage it caused to him, to our marriage, to our children. Soft murmurs arose. Damon offered an encouraging nod. From the edge of the group, Lucian watched, chest tight. Briella's actually facing her regrets without hiding behind excuses. She drew a shaky breath. Lucian, I'm sorry I disrespected you and made you question your worth. If we move forward together, I vow never to degrade you again. Silence lingered, broken only by the crackle of logs on the hearth. Then Lucian stepped forward, clearing his throat. Thank you, he said, voice low. I accept your apology. We're both learning how words can cut as deep as any blade. A few small smiles flickered among their friends. The tension eased. Liana dabbed at tears, whispering, I'm glad you're both trying. As they headed to the door later that night, Lucian felt a surprising calm. The humiliation he once carried like a festering wound had eased, replaced by a cautious respect for Briella's courage. She'd confronted the memory of that party publicly and soberly. Maybe I can finally lay this ghost to rest, he thought, inhaling the crisp air. On the ride home, Briella was quiet. Lucian reached for her hand on the gear shift, giving it a gentle squeeze. A small gesture, but meaningful. Her startled smile warmed him from the inside out. Winter melded into early spring without fanfare. The children traded snow boots for sneakers. The yard sprouted the first green shoots, and Lucian edged closer to an official job offer from Fortune Tech. A decision loomed like storm clouds on the horizon. Stay or go? One evening, after tucking the kids in, he found Briella in the dimly lit den, hunched over financial documents. She glanced up, a half-formed grin on her lips. Working on a revised budget if we move. Thought I'd see how we could handle costs, property taxes in Atlanta, the whole picture. Lucian joined her, scanning the figures. You're thorough. She set her pen down, gaze earnest. I want you to know I'm not clinging blindly. If relocating helps us reset, I'm in. If you'd rather stay, I'll abide by that. But I need to be sure we're doing it for the right reasons, not running from old mistakes. He pulled a chair beside her. Same here, he said softly. I've wondered if a move is symbolic like we're forging a new identity. He paused, inhaling. If we do, I need to trust you fully. Otherwise, it's pointless. She nodded, eyes shining with unshed tears. I understand. So do you trust me now? A pregnant silence. He considered the months of tentative rebuilding, her public apology, the calm acceptance of his job negotiations. The old fury was a distant echo, though not entirely gone, but in the quiet glow of the lamp, he saw no duplicity in her gaze, only hope. I'm not sure if fully is the right word, he admitted, but I trust you more than I have in a very long time, enough to consider giving this a real shot. She swallowed, relief and emotion washing over her features. That's all I can ask. They ended up talking late into the night, voices low to avoid waking Ellis and Clara. Every raw nerve was probed her old fantasies about Zarek, his dark thirst for revenge, the painful diary revelations, the humiliating fight at Oakfield Park. It was an unfiltered conversation they'd avoided for too long. At one point, Briella reached out tentatively, brushing her fingers against Lucian's. I never physically cheated, but emotionally I was a mess. I see now how unfair it was to you. I'm truly sorry. I hope you believe that. His throat tightened. He gently laced his fingers with hers. I do. And I'm sorry for pushing you to the brink with harsh legal tactics, even humiliating you in front of friends. We both went too far. Tears glistened in her eyes as she managed a shaky laugh. We're quite the pair. That night, for the first time since the separation fiasco, they fell asleep in the same bed tentatively, fully clothed but side by side. Lucian felt the warmth of her body, and though his heart hammered with doubt, he let the moment linger, either forgiveness or final goodbye. Tonight, it feels like forgiveness. Yet the next morning, a letter from the courthouse arrived, stirring old anxieties. It contained a reminder: your reconciliation period is nearing conclusion. The judge requires an update on custody and marital status within 30 days. A pointed timeline that forced clarity. Lucian read it aloud at the kitchen table, tension flickering across Briella's face. "So soon," she murmured. "We've only just begun to mend things." Ellis and Clara, sensing the adult gravity, grew quiet. Clara asked, "Daddy, does that mean we have to choose again?" Lucian smoothed her hair. "No, Pumpkin. It just means we tell the judge if we're staying together or not. You won't have to pick." Briella bit her lip, tears edging her lashes. "We're not done healing, but maybe we don't have to be finished. We can tell the judge we want to stay married, keep counseling, keep building trust." Lucian's chest felt heavy. "Yes, but only if I'm certain." They had a handful of weeks to decide forgiveness or final goodbye. The children's future hangs on our choice. That night, he tucked Ellis in, heart clenching, when his son mumbled, "I like having you home. Please don't leave again." Upstairs, he found Briella waiting by their bedroom door, eyes full of longing and fear. "Lucian," she whispered, "whatever you choose, I'll respect it." He closed his eyes. I never realized how love could be so twisted by betrayal, nor how betrayal could be softened by genuine remorse. The path stretched in two directions. Tomorrow, he'd make the call. A month later, a gentle spring breeze rustled through newly budding trees as Lucian and Briella exited the Rayburn County Courthouse hand in hand. The judge had just approved their request to remain married, dismissing the divorce petition. They signed new documents stating they'd continue counseling and had no further actions pending. Ellis and Clara raced across the lawn, beaming. Briella hugged them tight, tears of joy staining her cheeks. Lucian's heart thrummed they'd done it. The unstoppable path to divorce had been halted by something fragile yet undeniable: a renewed belief in each other. That afternoon, they drove to an open field by the lake, windows rolled down to let fresh air swirl. They tossed a blanket on the grass and picnicked as the kids chased a kite. Lucian reclined beside Briella, a small ache in his chest replaced by a cautious contentment. "We're not perfect, but we're trying." The following week, Lucian accepted Fortune Tech's offer. In a flurry of excitement and worry, they put the house on the market, ready to relocate for a fresh start. All four of them crammed into Lucian's car for a scouting trip in Atlanta, visiting schools, sampling restaurants, scoping out neighborhoods. One evening in the new city, they strolled through a bustling park under swaying lanterns. Briella clutched his arm, smiling shyly. "I feel like we're on an adventure." He squeezed her hand. "We are, together." As they paused at a bridge overlooking a small pond, he set down a small box of old letters, remnants of their painful past. With a symbolic nod, they dropped the letters into a metal disposal bin, letting go of those haunting memories. Briella's eyes brimmed with relief, and Lucian felt a strange lightness. We're unbound now, starting again. In the months to come, they carved out a new life, finding a cozy rental house, enrolling Ellis and Clara in local schools, forging new friendships away from the gossip back home. Therapy sessions via video chat with Dr. Westbrook continued, guiding them through lingering trust issues. One evening, after tucking the kids in, Briella and Lucian stood on their new porch, watching fireflies dance in the humid Georgia twilight. He slipped an arm around her waist. She rested her head on his shoulder. No words were necessary. They both felt the subtle hum of acceptance and forward momentum. "I'm not naive anymore," Lucian mused, "but I am hopeful." Their marriage wasn't the same as it once was. It was more honest, bruised, yet real. Each day, he woke up choosing to trust her a little more, and she woke choosing to prove worthy of that trust. In time, as the children laughed in their new backyard, as promotions and daily routines filled their world, the shadows of old betrayals finally faded. And in their place, a deeper kind of love took root, one born of broken illusions, rebuilt on truth. This was their unbound future,